Welcome, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and today we're going to be looking at a case that was requested that I look at. And interestingly enough, there was just brand new news that the police have said they might have DNA they can reevaluate in this case with the new technology. It's kind of amusing because the article actually says all these things that they found out and have done, and actually is one of the worst police investigations I have ever heard about. So I think late in the game, they're like, oh, we can solve this case because we're so smart. Anyway, and I'm very pro law enforcement, but this has just been pitiful, shall I say. But it doesn't mean they at some point didn't have a clue what was happening, didn't have an idea who they thought did something to the missing people, but could not get enough evidence. It's possible. And a lot of things are always, not revealed to the families and the public. So I don't want to be too harsh on them because maybe there's just more going on than I have a clue, So anyway, this show is about the unsolved disappearances of Paul and Sarah Skiba and Lorenzo Chivers. And this happened back in 1999 in Colorado. Okay. So before I get into this, I want to say hello to everybody who is in the chat room. I think I've been here for a bit, so I think I've said hello to almost everybody who is already here. How Tetrafin just rolled in. So glad to see you. I think Lady Jane too. And we have a full chat room today, which I always enjoy. People ask me why I want to do live shows and just not do videos. It's because I'm much more inspired when I have people I can communicate with, people who want to learn. And I'm going to use your brains in this. I'm going to have you brainstorm because this is a case nobody seems to be able to figure out. There are many theories and a lot of confusion. And it seems ridiculous, this case. I mean, it's like, how can this not have been solved? And so I'm going to have you help brainstorm because this is an educational channel. As I say over and over again, I'm not a storyteller. I'm an educational channel. I want you to go through the process of thinking as a profiler or an investigator. That's the point of the channel. Now, if you would like to be in the chat room with these lovely people, please do click on the link below for our Patreon. It's $5 a month. I have one level. I make it easy. And that's so you can be part of the community and come to 2 live shows a week, a case show like this, and also the hangout during the week. And it does support an educational channel, which YouTube isn't exactly thrilled about. But if you don't want to do that, don't worry. Every one of my videos is public because I want people to learn. So please do hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications, and check my playlist. Okay, now let's get on with this absolutely fascinating case. I mean, I actually was very worried about this case because I was asked to do it, and I started reading up on it. I was so thrilled, and I'm like, okay, I put out yesterday, I'm going to do this case. And then I'm sitting here going, I can't figure this case out. I'm supposed to be a profiler. I'm like going, what the heck? And I'm like, how many hours do I have left? I don't have a watch. Ooh, does anybody wear a watch anymore? Okay, how many hours do I have left? And I have to say, I spent half the night thinking about this. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. still thinking. I got up 8 o'clock this morning. I never get up till 10. Still trying to figure this case out, and was on this all day long. I do have a theory. I do have one. So, but I'm going to ask you to, a brainstorm. Anyway, Anna just rolled in and Kim rolled in. Welcome. And okay, let's get to what this case is about. All right. I'm going to read you a little bit from Wikipedia, and I also want to tell you where you can get other information. Basically, the story that goes like this. Paul Skiba and his daughter, Sarah, and I think she was 10. And the guy who worked for he ran a company. He ran a company, a moving company. Those that have trucks like this, move stuff, around. Not long distance stuff, but stuff that people say, hey, I need to move from house A to house B. Can you get my stuff over there? Kind of like the student movers and that. But he had that company, and his daughter went on a kind of like, I'll call it a ride along, like I've done with my daughter in the police work. Basically, he ended up. He had somebody who was supposed to be working that Sunday, but he couldn't do it because a relative had died. So he said, "Can you take my spot?" And he said, "Sure, I'll do it for you." But he had his daughter to take care of it. But his mother was out of town, so he just took his daughter with him. And he said, well, it'll be like, going to work day with Daddy. And also Lorenzo, who worked with him, was going to help him with, obviously, all the moving stuff. So Lorenzo was there. So they disappeared under mysterious circumstances in Westminster, Colorado. And I want to show you where Westminster, Colorado is. I'm finding the mapping of this case kind of interesting. Okay, so this is Westminster, Colorado. In case you don't know, if you're not from this country, the U.S., or you just can't remember your states, so Colorado is there. just want to let you know. All right. So on the day they went missing, Sarah accompanied her father, Paul, who owned the Tuff Movers Company, and this is a picture of let's see. This is the lot out of which the truck came out of. He had this lot, and I think he owned the lot. I'm not quite sure about all of that, but he also rented spaces to other people so they could park their vehicles in the lot, which is often done in especially in our metropolitan areas. Essentially, you're not allowed to park your big ass truck in front of your house on a residential street. People don't take kindly to that, so sometimes you have to find a place to park your truck. And this is the front of the business, as far as I know. So there were these gates, and the whole thing about how the gates locked is very confusing. I'll get to that. And then this was basically the truck. He had two trucks, I believe, and one was not functional without an engine. This was the functional one, at least as far as I know. So this will be the truck he was driving that day to do the job he went to do. All right. So he went. So Sarah, let me tell you basically. He was divorced from his wife. She had moved to where did she move to? I always forget. Granby. Granby was like, let me see if I have the Granby. Granby, son? Where's Granby? There it is. Is that Granby? Okay. I think that's Granby over there on the left. So it's about an hour and 48 minutes away. So they were divorced, and the wife was out there, and so he got custody. He didn't get custody. She got basic custody. So he got what you often get if you're the losing party. He got like Wednesdays and weekends and summers. So he would drive all the way over, almost 2 hours, over to where the mom lived. And he would get a motel or hotel, and he'd be sure the swimming pool because she liked to swim. He seemed to be a pretty good daddy. And when she came to stay with him, he got involved in all kinds of activities that she loved. And apparently his house was just full of pictures of her. So clearly this man loved his daughter, just putting that out there. And so he owned the Tuff Movers Company in Westminster, Colorado. And he was on that job because his other employee was not available. He went on the job in place of him, which is an important point because that would maybe have an influence on who would know he was even in that truck that day. And of course, he was there. All right. So the three were last seen in Morrison that evening. Morrison is, what did I picture of Morrison? I have all the maps. You know me and the maps. They're so freaking small. You can't see which map you're looking at. Where's Morrison? Can't see it. Okay, Morrison. Now about 20 minutes kind of southwest of Denver, sort of, but not very far. Just want to point that out. So they were last seen in Morrison. So when they got the call to do the job, that job was planned. They got in the truck. This is the truck. They got in the truck, and the three of them went to Morrison, and they did the job. So they were last seen in Morrison. So they did leave the lot and go to Morrison. And then there was a phone call made by Sarah, and I can't quite understand this, but let me see if I can find this issue about the phone call from Sarah. She made a phone call back to the house. He was living with a woman named Teresa, and his mother and Teresa and Teresa's new baby, which was supposedly his, but he questioned that. and Sarah were all living together, 4 of them in the house. She made a phone call back to that house, and it's 1999. So do we have cell phones back then? I don't know. So if there was no cell phone, then she made it from a payphone or from the lot somewhere. But that was the last time anybody heard from any of them, was when she made that call. And so that's important to know, just because, well, they were alive. They were alive. They went to Morrison, did their job, were coming back, and they were still alive. And they arrived at the lot, and whether she called from the lot or right before the lot, I don't know. But there was a phone call that was made. Let me see. Here it is. 6. Okay, so here we go. The 3 were last seen at approximately 6 p.m. in Morrison, and at 6:22 p.m., Sarah made a call. So 6:22 was the last time anybody heard from them. She made a call back to their house, and it's a little vague here, and a lot of the information on this case is very vague. So you always have to, when I do these shows, I always tell you this is about the thinking process, not about absoluteness, because some of this stuff is questionable. But at 6:22, she supposedly made a phone call. I believe she made the phone call. The question is who she made it to. Sometimes it was said she made it to his girlfriend slash woman he lived with slash baby mama. And why she would make that, I don't know. It could be if there really was, whether it was a cell phone or it was a payphone, he could have said, hey, give her a ring and let her know we're on our way home. We don't know what was actually said. At least that's not public. Or she was also possibly calling somebody else. It's a little flimsy. But anyway, 6:22, that phone call was made. I think that's established. So that means they went to Morrison, did the job. We're coming back 6:22, last time anybody was ever heard from. But then he never came home. She never came home. He never came home. They just went missing. So that's the basic of the beginning of the case. I'm going to check some of your comments. I want to talk about the content of the call is important. You would think. Well, as a child, but I would like to know absolutely who she called. But again, we're talking about the internet and the media. We don't get good information. So that's why I always say you got to be a little, just skeptical of anything. Did they have, okay, 1999, trying to remember. Devices had been available for years. The use was rapidly growing. Okay, there weren't smartphones. Okay, 1999 may have been a smartphone. I mean, any kind of, those little flip phones. I just don't remember 1999. Did I have one? I don't remember. I think I did, but okay. So if it was a cell phone, we wouldn't know exactly, at least outside of the investigation, where she made the phone call from, or what location. Was it at the actual lot? Had they returned, or was it someplace else? But the most important point about that phone call is not that where she made it, but that if she made it back to their house where Teresa, his baby mama slash common law wife, whatever she was apparently not a very nice person. I'll just say that. So did she call to say, hey, we're on our way home? Why did she call? Now, if she called Teresa, his common law wife, or whatever, so he was about to kick her out. He questioned that their baby was even his, which it turned out to be, but she has a sketchy behavior. So he was about done with her. So why did she call? And if she called just because he said, hey, call and let her know we're on our way home, or did Teresa tell her, give me a call when you get to the lot? I mean, these are things we don't know, but it could indicate if somebody was involved in the crime or not. No, that's the important point. Okay, so they were as big as bricks. Well, I know that my brother-in-law, he is a famous boxer, won 3 championships, Simon Brown, and because he had won some pretty good fights and had made some money. I remember we went out to this lake and we were having a picnic, and he brought his phone out, and it was like in this box, and we were like, ooh, it's so cool. It was crazy. So yeah. If the content with a call relevant and she cared, surely the receiver would want the information out there. Well, Teresa is really a sketchy person. I'm going to get into all the sketchy people. That's the problem with this case. So many sketchy people. Before I continue, I want to point out where else you might get information from, to be fair. All right. So Stephen Pacheco does a show. There's a channel called Trace Evidence. I have often, people say, oh, you never recommend other channels. I always recommend Trace Evidence. Stephen Pacheco is one of the few people who does storytelling, but he seems to have his facts in order, and I like his voice. So I've always appreciated Stephen Pacheco and Trace Evidence. And but you got to be careful where you go listen to crap. So I originally listened to Unsolved, and I grabbed it. The only reason I did this because there was so little information on this case out there in the public. Normally, I try to avoid all podcasts because I don't want to be influenced by them, and I don't want to plagiarize them. So, although I don't storytell, I don't want to misuse them. But I couldn't find anything on this case. So I found this Unsolved, and I flipped through it, and I'm reading it. And I'm like, okay. And then I found, Trace Evidence is out there. So I went over to Trace Evidence I'm like, I'm hearing the exact same thing. What the heck? I mean, it sounds like this, which came after this, plagiarized. It really sounded like it was plagiarized. So I was concerned about that. I'm like, what the heck? Hold on 1 second. I'm hearing a dog. I'm going to tell my daughter, the dog is out and barking. I had a problem the other day with it. Next door, my daughter lives next door, and there's a very barky dog, and she tries to keep the dog in during my shows. So I'm putting the dog is out and barking. So I don't know who let the dog out. Who let the dogs out? Anyway, so I'm like, I'm not saying he plagiarized, but it was almost word for word what Stephen Pacheco had put out there. And I wanted to let you know that Stephen Pacheco actually had to get a lawyer to go against, you're not going to believe this because a lot of people don't realize this goes on, against Crime Junkie, one of the most popular shows. Crime Junkie has been accused of plagiarism over and over and over again. And Stephen Pacheco went against them. He said they stole my stuff. And not in those words. And I've been telling so many people that a lot of YouTubers plagiarize other channels. They simply listen to the other channel. They look, especially if they have a transcript, they just put the transcript in front of them, and then they just slightly reword it, but they just basically plagiarize the crap out of it. So I would not recommend this channel because I have suspicions. I would recommend Stephen Pacheco and Trace Evidence. And also, there's this other channel called The Trail Went Cold. And I don't know who this guy is. I don't. And he's got almost no subscribers. He's done a lot of videos, no subscribers, and very few views. But I did listen to some of this, and I kind of liked it, He actually did analysis, which I usually disapprove of if you're not professional. But I was fairly impressed by some of his analysis. I'm like, you're really thinking things through. And I want to give credit to people who do that. So it doesn't seem like he's gotten I don't know, the algorithm doesn't love him. But he's not AI, but I think he's one of the better ones out there. Go figure. Yeah, I didn't have really a problem with him. And I thought he had some interesting things to say. So if you're going to go go through this whole crime and want to go someplace else, you want to click off and go there, I have no problem with that. But I'm going to now move into analysis. That's my whole point about these things. I don't do storytelling. I do analysis. So let's get to the analysis part very quickly. All right. Just check it. Chat GPT. That's getting out of hand entirely. It is intellectual theft. It's very frustrating. Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's very, very unfortunate. But there you go. That's the way it's. I fell asleep to his voice last night. He has a lovely voice. If you're talking about Stephen Pacheco, his voice is really good. On Unsolved, the guy annoyed the crap out of me. So I didn't even enjoy. I had to read the transcript because I didn't like his voice. But all right, let's get to this case. I'm sorry, I have to laugh at this. I wrote to my daughter, the dog is out and barking. She said he's inside barking. I gave him a treat and he shut up. I'm going to put, my God, he's loud. This is a live show, so it is. You get what you get. Okay, now let me get to the analysis, because this is what I find absolutely fascinating about this case. But I wanted to get you just set up for this. Now, here's the issue about the case that is so bizarre. All right, so essentially what happens is they go on this thing. She makes the phone call, and nobody comes home. Nobody. And people are like, where are they? The mother of this little girl says she was supposed to be returned to me. Where is she? She didn't come home. His son was expecting him home. His ex-wife is like, where is he? He's missing. His mother was very concerned. His common law wifey, not so much. But it was bizarre. So this all happened on February 7th, okay? When Paul, okay, let's get the information on this correct. All right. When Paul failed to return home. Oh, Teresa, she did. Oh, I take it back. You're a bad person. Teresa, the common law wife, did phone the police. That is interesting. I somehow missed that. She did phone the police department, said they didn't take her seriously, after which Sharon, that's the mother of him, placed a call regarding Paul's absence. Sometimes later, Michelle phoned the police. There's so many names I start getting to miss who is who. Okay, who's Michelle? Oh, that's the mother of the little girl. All right. So she phoned the police, notifying them that Sarah had not been returned her from the weekend stay with Paul. On February 8th, that's the next day, Chivers' son called his mother and told her his father had not returned home. Okay, so by the next day, the police knew that these three were missing. Okay. On that same day, Jerry was another of Paul's employees. I think he was the one that couldn't be there, couldn't do the job on the 7th. Arrived at Tuff Movers store and noticed that the company's large moving truck had been unusually parked front first and crooked. So in other words, he said that Paul was a neat freak and anal about everything. So I'm thinking, wow, why is the truck parked like that? So in other words, I guess it's supposed to be backed in, and it was like, front end and crooked. He also noted that the lock on the front gate had been changed, leaving him unable to enter the parking lot. Now, this is a really bizarre thing, and I can't figure it out. And if anybody else does, put it in the comments. Now, I can't understand if the gate, supposedly sometimes Paul changed the lock so that somebody he fired couldn't get back in. I get that. But I can't nobody talks about what kind of lock it was. Was it a key lock? Was it one that you put your number in? What was it? And how he rented to other people in the lot. So they would immediately, as soon as he changed it, they would have to know the change. Otherwise they couldn't get in and out themselves. So it's very strange. I can't understand that. But anyway, he couldn't get in the lot because it had been changed, which also is interesting because Jerry, I mean, it's the next day. Who changed the lock at that point in time is what I wonder about. I mean, that would be that night the lock was changed. Was it changed by the killers? Was it the abductors? Was it changed by who changed it? And there's no information on that. And I would love to know that. After Paul and Shivers failed to arrive at the Tuff store, he subsequently phoned the police. So now the police have been phoned by literally everybody. 3 days later, on February 11th, 3 days later, law enforcement entered the Tuff Movers lot with Bybee assisting them. I thought they jumped over the fence, but all right. Bybee noticed a puddle of motor oil partly covered with a piece of plywood in the van lot. He would later state he felt the investigating officer destroyed more evidence that he was willing to look at. So they jumped in and said, no biggie. It's like, why is nobody concerned about this? Why are the police not concerned? So then another fellow came in with his wife, and they met the mother at Tuff Movers to investigate the premises themselves. His name was Westminster. He was an auto mechanic, had worked there on the truck, one of the trucks on the lot that didn't have an engine in it. So the release was the main truck and then this truck. He found multiple bullet holes in the side of the truck he'd been previously working on. The exterior of the truck also had a blood stain smeared across it and a chunk of what appeared to be human scalp lying near the windshield. So you would think at this point, law enforcement says these people something's happened to. Now, his vehicle was not in the lot. His vehicle was not in the lot. Now, the police decided it was for some reason not concerning that there was blood and parts of people's heads in the lot on the windshield. No biggie. That he had abducted his daughter because his wife was considering moving out of state and wanted full custody. So he decided to kidnap his own daughter. So it was a kidnapping by the dad, which, it does happen. And so he took his car and kidnapped her. But what happened to him? He's missing too, and his car is missing too. What? They ignored that, and they ignored the blood. They ignored the scalp, pieces of the scalp. And it's absolutely insane. So finally, they got the Colorado Bureau of Investigation involved. And the DNA analysis, they were begging for luminol testing. And they finally did luminol testing, and they found that the back of the truck and the cab had blood in it because the luminol showed that. It had been cleaned, actually been cleaned. The large amount of blood led authorities to believe that both were dead. At least these two. Why just these two? Because there was DNA from Paul and there was DNA from Sarah, but there was no DNA from Lorenzo. So they could conclude that these two had been most likely murdered, most likely. And so they were at that point. And then we're talking, this took forever for them. I mean, their local police department failed. The sheriff's department failed dismally. And so what was the Colorado Bureau of Investigation? CBI came in and at least finally listened to somebody and started investigating. And so the family, his mother hired a helicopter to go look for his car and couldn't find it. But they did find his vehicle on February 17th. They found a vehicle belonging to Chivers in an apartment complex in Westminster, several blocks from the Tuff Movers lot. Now, this is really important. This is where the analysis starts coming in. All right, so here we have where they are. That's the location of the place. This is how far away the vehicle for Lorenzo was. We're talking 3 minutes. All right. So that really was not far away. Then 10 days later, on February 27th, a vehicle belonging to Paul was discovered in an apartment complex parking lot at 3129 Arkansas Avenue in Denver. And so let's look where that is. It's all the way, I don't know, I can't see with my glasses. Yeah, that's correct. That's all the way down there. Okay, now it's 25 minutes away, but why is it down there is the question. And so then in March of 1999, 5 weeks after the 3 disappearances, the Thornton police and the CBI formally stated they had evidence suggesting foul play. Suggesting. So really? So all 3 of them disappear. And there's blood at the scene. And there's parts of people's scalp at the scene. They're all missing, and the cars are missing. And you don't think there's foul play on day 1? This was abominable, absolutely horrific police investigation. They should be ashamed of themselves. Okay, it doesn't make sense he kidnapped his daughter on a job with an employee. That's a good point, Anna. That doesn't make sense, does it? I mean, he could return and then they'll just leave and he should go home, right? Wouldn't you want him to go home first and then you just go out for, get some snacks and just keep going? Absolutely. Sounds like a crime of opportunity. Good question. Now, let's go to here, Benny. It would be odd if Paul's mother or Sarah's mother was involved in this, as it would mean they're willing to kill their daughter or granddaughter. Not likely. Teresa, on the other hand, more so. Okay, Benny, nobody has ever questioned that his mother had anything to do with this, or that her mother had anything to do with this. I think there was always a possibility. Let's say she wanted to let's say her mother wanted to off him so she could just be free to move where she wanted to, and he was out of their lives. That's possible, but not probable in this case, because especially since what access would she have from that far away to hire the right people to kill him? And of course, a daughter was not supposed to be there that day. So theoretically, but very unlikely. And it wasn't that they got along so badly. I mean, he did seem to treat her daughter pretty well. Seemed to care about her a lot. Why she was moving out of state is concerning, in the sense that I know that my sister, when she divorced from her husband, when they divorced, she had moved to Minnesota because her husband was from Minnesota and got a job there. And so she was pretty much stuck there for the next, God knows, like 20 years to raise the kids there, because as she just moved out of state, said, oh, I just feel like living back in Maryland where I came from. He's like, well, basically what you're telling me is that either you don't want anything to do with the kids because either you're the one moving away, or you're saying I can't see the kids. So a lot of states have rules about whether you can move away when you have a joint custody situation, even if it's not physical joint custody. If one person's got more custody than the other, you just can't just disappear and take the kid with you and not have the other parent have any access to the child, unless there's some good reason. And I don't know. I didn't hear of any good reason. So that she would want to leave, or supposedly she did. Maybe she had a great job offer, but he seemed to be so into his daughter. I think he would have been pretty upset with that. And would he have fought it? Probably. Was that enough for Sarah's mother to want to kill him so she could go take the new job offer or whatever she had going? It wasn't very likely. So you're correct. This is okay. Anna says maybe they returned to disturb burglars who stole their cars. I'm going to get into that, whether that could be true. If no individuals are close to them are suspects, maybe a serial killer. Absolutely not. It's not a serial killer crime. Absolutely not. My question is, what did somebody do with at least possibly three of the bodies? That's a great question. How does one person shoot two men before a child, and a father's daughter at that? That's a good question too. Okay, so great questions. So one of the interesting things about this crime is, first of all, nobody knows why it went down, and that all three of them went missing, and their cars went missing. Now, for Lorenzo, his wife, as his ex-wife Misha, who he was supposedly getting back together with, was very upset because he was possibly a suspect in this crime, or people were considering him a suspect in this crime. Let me tell you why I think that was true. Now, she was saying that he was living with, get this straight, he's living with Teresa. He was living with Teresa's sister. I think there was some kind of relationship going there, but he was considering he and Misha were considering reuniting the family. Misha had they had a girl. Misha had the girl. He had his 15-year-old son living with them. And everybody says, I say everybody. His wife says, and there's no other people to say that's not true, that he was a really, really nice guy. A very sweet, kind, loving, nice guy, not involved in anything nefarious. There's no reason to suspect him of anything, that this guy would be a total victim in this case. Now, I want to talk about that because when I did the Anna Kepner case recently, I'm going to do an actual video on a thing called obviously. People go, obviously he would not be connected. And the Anna Kepner case, people are like, obviously she was murdered from day one. You knew, obviously. And I kept saying, if you're going to do investigations or profiling, you never say the word obviously, because obviously you're missing something. Obviously you're not willing to consider other possibilities. So you might be missing something. So you can't say obviously. So obviously he's a nice guy and nothing to do with anything. Obviously he was the target. Obviously she was killed, because she was happened to be there. That might be the most obvious thing. But can I eliminate him as a possible perpetrator, regardless of what everybody says about his niceness? Now, my ex-husband, been married 25 years, and there was, and it's one of my cases that is close to my heart. There was a sexual homicide that was close to our house, and I suspected my own renter of being involved. And some people say, well, would you suspect your husband? And the answer would be absolutely not. Why? Because I knew he was not a violent person. He never committed, I've never seen him commit any kind of crime or have any kind of devious kind of mindset in as far as that kind of thing goes. A sexual crime, no way. I just knew my ex-husband, not that kind of guy. So people sometimes say, oh, this guy was the nicest guy in the world. He was a teacher, blah, blah, blah. Well, usually they're not. Usually not accused of serial homicides. But there's usually the person who's accused of a serial homicide has a very sketchy behavior, and people found him creepy and a few other reasons. So there's nothing negative about him. But I've only heard from the wife on this, Misha, or the ex-wife. So I don't know. He was living with people that were kind of sketchy. He was working as helping move furniture with him. So I'm going to say he didn't have the greatest job record for a man who was probably in his 40s or late, whatever. I do not find there's any criminal record. I don't know of any criminal record for him. But I can't exclude him as a suspect until I can exclude him as a suspect, regardless of how nice he seems to look. And it looks like a nice guy. It looks like a great guy, And people said he was a nice guy. Doesn't mean that he couldn't have done it. And here is the reason people suspect him. I want to see if you come up with the reason. Why would it be possible that, now, mind you, after the crime, he never used a credit card, never was seen anyplace again, disappeared off the face of the earth. But why could he be considered a suspect? What is the reasons he could be considered a suspect? Could it be a fired former employee that it was considered? Surely would have reappeared at some point. You would think, but there have been the occasions where people haven't reappeared for 20, 30, 40 years. Paul owed him money? No, not so much. What's the big reason do you think that was the issue with this case, why he became a suspect at all? This is the number one reason. I have two reasons, actually. Oh, that's a third reason. I like that. Last person to be with them. Yes. The three of them were together. So yes, he was the last person to be with them. One way, either alive or dead. I don't know which way. That is the number one reason. No blood. No blood. So they found the blood of these two in the lot, on the trucks, and part of his scalp. But no blood from Lorenzo. Why? If they were brutally shot in the lot, why would they shoot him too? And that is a big issue. No, he didn't kill his daughter. They have no DNA because, no DNA of him. No blood, no DNA, correct. His DNA wasn't there, and because both men would have to be overpowered. Well, that's true. But if you have a gun, you can overpower two men. Let's see. He might have gotten in a fight with Paul and accidentally killed him and then had to kill the daughter and fled the scene. Possibly. Only he didn't flee the scene. If it was him, he didn't flee the scene. This is the other thing that's bizarre. So the truck was removed from the lot. The truck was gone and came back at 12 o'clock at night. So it is believed that the person who killed them took the bodies to another location. And there was actually what else they found missing? The extension ramp in the truck. This truck was missing. So we have this. A witness claimed to have heard. Okay, there's another thing I want to go here. Okay. Witnesses told the police that the truck in question had been seen leaving the lot between 7 and 8 times that night. That makes no sense. And returning around midnight. This led the police to determine that the bodies could not be more than a couple hours away. An extension ramp was missing from one of the trucks, leading authorities to suspect the killers may have used it to sink the bodies into a lake, as vegetation was discovered in the truck radiator, indicating it had been driven near a body of water. Search canines were used in an attempt to trace the water, and necrosearch, specializing in recovery of human remains, failed. So they didn't get anywhere. But whoever killed these two, and maybe him, these two, they were in the truck. The truck was driven away to a location, possibly a body of water, and the bodies were wrapped up, tied up to that to extension ramp, and sunk in water. So he fled the scene in 2 cars. That's a good question. How would he return both vehicles, though? Okay. But here's the reason why he was suspected. You have somebody drove that truck away and dumped the bodies, at least of these 2. And here's the question one has to ask. If he was involved, and if he got in an argument with Paul at the lot and shot him and accidentally killed the daughter too, what would happen if he just went home? Somebody answer that question. What would happen if he just went home? This is true. Lorenzo knows the premises, can drive, no DNA, has access to the truck. Does he have motive? But what would happen if he just went home? He'd be arrested, right? Because you can't have 2 people dead in the parking lot and you go home. You're the only person. You were all 3 together and you're the only one alive. So consequently, if you're doing an investigation, you can't use the word obviously. Could he have been involved in the sense that if he had killed them in the parking lot, he would know, oh my God, if I leave them here, I'm going to be the number 1 suspect. There's no way around it, because if I show up alive, I'm going to be it. So in order to prevent that from happening, I will have to remove their bodies from the parking lot, go get rid of them. And then I'm going to have to get rid of myself too, because if I show up home, they're still going to question me. So I would have to. So here's the truck did go away and it came back at about midnight. So he could be saying, I have to drive them, get rid of them, and then drive back to the lot. And then I have to, get rid of both our cars. Could he get rid of both the cars? That's the next question. Oh, this is very true. He could have killed himself somewhere far off, I suppose. Yes, people forget about that. Sometimes people commit a crime and they try to cover it up, and then they run away, and then they realize, I'm screwed. So they take themselves off into a forest someplace and kill themselves, and are never seen again. So it's possible. Could he kill the daughter to eliminate the witness? That is also possible. People think, oh my God, who could do that? Well, some people can do that. 1 car at a time. Okay, let's look at the 1 car at a time. All right, so let's go back to the cars. We have his car, which is just 3 minutes away, which means he could arrive back at the lot. Then he could take his car and drive it away, dump it there, because he don't want to get too far away, because you got to go back and get the other car, right? So then you get the other car, and then he drives that car down to Denver and dumps it in an apartment parking lot, which is a good thing to do when you want to blame it on somebody else. And then from there, you vanish. Now, I did check to see whether there was a Greyhound nearby, and Greyhound Trailways, and it's actually freaking far away. So it's not a great place to dump a car if you're going to jump a bus. So he would have had to go down there and then somehow vanish. Could this be possible? Yes, it could be possible, because it can be done. And this is what you have to look at. Now, people are going to say, well, gee, getting rid of these bodies all by himself and cleaning up the vehicle and doing the things that he did is a lot of work. It is a lot of work. That is very true. Then there's another little glitch here. And just because something's not a lot of work doesn't mean it can't be done, by the way. You know, people can they get adrenaline going, and they can do some some stuff, you know. Um, but the other interesting thing is Paul's car that was found in Denver was also found with mud on it. His car was found clean, as clean in the fact that there weren't even fingerprints, but clean. His car had mud. His stuff was still in the car. Her little toys were still in the car, but there was mud on the car. Why would the mud be there if you're just driving to an apartment complex in Denver? So it would appear that car, his car, was also at the dump site that the truck was at, right? So if that's true, then you say, okay, let's look at this again. So he takes the bodies to some lake or something, drives it up there, and they said there was enough reason to believe the car was also at the crime scene, I mean, dump site. Now he's taken that up there, he gets rid of the bodies, and he comes back and he gets in the vehicle, Paul's vehicle, and you say, well, he put it in Denver so it wouldn't have mud on it. Okay, that's true. However, what people again don't look at is the possibilities. What if he panics and says, oh my God, I hope I did it right. I hope the bodies aren't visible. So he gets in his car, drives to the dump site, and the dump site could be near Denver, for all we know. He could have got, that could be just on the way. He goes and checks it out and says, can't see any bodies, and then dumps the car. So see, there is an explanation for that. And you've got to be careful that you don't eliminate possibilities just because you want to believe this guy. No, he didn't do it. Obviously, he didn't do it. So could he have done all this? And my answer is yes. Did he do all this? Is it not? Is he my top number one suspect? My answer is no. But I just want to point out that you've got to examine all the possibilities. Sarah was probably collateral. Oh, she definitely was collateral damage. It was just terrible. I mean, poor child. She wasn't the target. One of the two men was clearly him. Clearly him. That was very much. Pretty much everybody believes he was number one target, and so do I. So, and used his car to dump the bodies first. Okay, let's look at that, Anna. So theoretically, okay, the only problem would be the missing extension ramp, and I don't know how. Okay, so that's a great question. Okay, let's think about that. So he kills these people, and he goes, "Oh crap!" So he takes them, uses the blankets, and puts them in his car. Although I don't think there was blood found in his car. I can't remember now. He could do that, but he has to also put the extension ramp in there too, and that could be. I don't know if it would fit, but theoretically that's true. The claim, the belief is also the truck was at the lake because it had the vegetation in it. So I would say it would make very little sense to remove the bodies from where it's easier to take to the lake with that. And you wouldn't, I don't think you would go with a small car and then go back with the truck. I mean, that doesn't make sense. So I would have to say good thinking though. But no, I'd say the truck went first and then the car followed, or in another scenario, both the truck and the car went at the same time, which means there might be two people involved or three people involved in the crime. So that's what gets trickier. All right. So now I'm going to go say with his, theoretically. So, but let's get to the other suspects because there's other suspects. Now, the other suspects. Oh my God. All right. Let's talk about them. Let me look at my notes on this. All right. So let's go to Teresa. So he was hooked up with a woman named Teresa. She was on disability and some arthritis in her leg. So he was basically caring for her. She was 10 years younger, so maybe a younger woman. Anyway, she was living in the house with his mother, and his mother couldn't stand her. So he got a trailer house for her, and then she stayed there. But then when she had the baby, they came back to his mom's house. So then his mom, Teresa, and the baby were staying there. But he suspected that Teresa's baby may not be his because of her behavior. So he was going to, he was questioning that. He wanted her out of the house. So the day before all this went down, he told her he wanted her to leave, supposedly. All right. So that's kind of a motive thing, right? Now, meanwhile, Bobby Joe, which is Teresa's sister, was who he was living with. but he was reconciling most likely with Misha. Now, right after this all happened, Teresa did call the police. As I didn't see that earlier. She did call the police. But then she also told people she had been to a psychic, and the psychic said that they both been shot in the head, which is, considering his scalp was on the ground, any psychic could say that. And then she said that his car was found. Wait a minute. How'd this go? Okay, wait a minute. Let me find out. That his car was going to be found near a lake, which is not true. His car was found near Denver, so it was in a suburb. So the psychic, if she actually went to one, was not telling that, it's just a fraud like usual. But that she said these things creep people out. Meanwhile, Bobby Joe, the girl he was living with, which was the sister of the guy, the woman he was living with, said, something horrible happened to him, like right after the crime, like within a day. And then 4 days later, she packed up his shit and told the 15-year-old son, you got to go back to mom's house and here's your dad's stuff. And people are like, well, you must know what happened to him then, because you don't even think he's a chance he's alive, and you're already saying something bad happened to him, and you're packing up his stuff. What kind of crap is that? So that's interesting. And then the other guy, okay, let me tell you the other guy in this whole thing. Now, where is his name? Tom Donovan. Now, his girlfriend, Teresa, had the Bobby Joe he was living with, a sister, and then she had also a brother named Tom Donovan. He had worked for Paul, but was fired because he was a scumbag, and Lorenzo was hired in his place. So Tom Donovan apparently was not a nice character, and he later said that he was glad these two were dead. And he said, I think he also said they were shot in the head. Then his mother took him to court, and while he was in court, he was like, looked at her and went, nice character. So Tom Donovan, now the show, and I don't know whether he's wrong on this, and so, but this is why I say to be real careful. So on The Trail Went Cold, he said that Donovan stabbed his mother up, and he went to prison for attempted murder. This was later on. And there is a guy named Tom Donovan in the area who did stab his mother and go to prison. Same guy? I don't know. I couldn't find out whether it was really was the same Tom or not. So this is where I say you have to be very careful when you watch a show. Is he right? I don't know. He could be right, or he could have mistakenly jumped to conclusions. So you have to be careful of that stuff. But Tom Donovan was not a nice guy. So we have this situation where he was dumping his girlfriend / common law wife. And he was supposedly said he wanted to get full custody of the baby if it was his, because he thought she was a mess. And this happened right before all of this went down. And then Lorenzo, who was living with the sister seems to say, oh, he's dead. Here, take his stuff away. So the whole family isn't very nice about Paul or about the incident for the most part. So the majority of people, the suspicion comes down to them, that they were, first of all, that they would know that he was replacing his buddy Jerry, or his employee Jerry. Jerry was supposed to do the run that day, but he couldn't do it. So he asked Paul to take over, and Paul did. That meant that probably Teresa knew that he was going to work. And so Jerry wasn't going to be there. So if anybody knew that Paul was going to be in that lot, Teresa would. And since Sarah called at that particular time to basically say we're back, she would also know, or we're coming back. She would also know when they were going to be there. So there was also a person who said they heard a woman scream. Now, I don't know if they heard a woman scream or they heard a child scream. So that's some people are saying it's because they heard a woman scream. It has to be Teresa. But I don't know if you could tell just a woman scream and a child scream at a time like that. So she could have screamed because she saw her daddy get shot. And then she could have screamed because then she got shot. So I don't know that that's proof that Teresa was there. But then Teresa said something strange to Jerry. She goes, I was over there. Don't tell the police. She supposedly said that. Now, again, supposedly. So did Teresa want to get rid of him? Okay, so that's the next bunch of suspects. Oh, good God, is that a mess? All right. Not the mother, the poor mother, Sarah. She was trying to keep the business going because what happened was they would not say he was dead. So he was a missing person. Even if his scalp was hanging around, he was not dead. So she could not get his insurance policy to pay out. She couldn't shut. She was trying to keep the business going. She couldn't sell the house because he wasn't dead. So she had to pay the mortgage on the house. She had to keep everything going. Everything went to hell. She spent a fortune trying to first find her son, and secondly, trying to keep everything going when nobody would sign a death certificate for him. So she couldn't solve anything. Then it all went to court, and strange things happened there. There was I don't know if it was a payout. There was $100,000 policy on Sarah. There was $100,000 policy on Sarah. What did I just call her mom? Did I just call the mom by the wrong name? Sorry, what was the mom's name? I was calling her Sarah. Sharon. His mom's name is Sharon. She is Sarah. So there's $100,000 policy on her and a smaller policy on Sharon and Sarah. And that couldn't pay out. And then eventually when it did, the judge did some really squirrely things. And Teresa went to court and said, oh, but I have his son. And since he cared so much about his daughter being whatever, that he would want his estate going to his son. And the judge did some really squirrely things and took that whatever payout there was. And they made Sharon, they said she lived in the house for 5 years with that rent free. So that would be $1,000 a month. So that's $10,000 a year. So that was $50,000 she owed. They just raked her over the coals. So there were some really nasty creatures involved in all of this stuff. So Teresa did end up with some money but yeah, it was an absolute nightmare. Wasn't there a deadline? I'm not absolutely sure about that. Yeah, I'm not absolutely sure about that. But okay, now let's stop for a minute. Okay, so now this all gets crazy, right? Let's stop for a minute. I just want to say, the police say, and have said, they think that the whole thing was a drug hit. This is all coming down to illegal drugs. That's their theory. Detective Long, who was the main guy in the case, said that he believed that he had him sketchy. He had a little bit of a sketchy background. Did a little bit of drug stuff and some other behavioral things. But apparently, after his daughter was born, he's supposed to clean up his act. But Detective Long seems to think that he was using his business as a front for drug transactions. And other people say, well, he may have sold, maybe, he was just a little bit of marijuana, maybe, but I don't think that he was into that kind of thing. But Detective Long thinks that this was something to do with the drug business, and that's where he stands. Okay, so now let's go to, so he's thrown that one into the ring. But let's go to Teresa. Here's my problem with Teresa. Not that I don't have a lot of problems with Teresa. I wouldn't want my son hooked up with her. Okay, I want to ask you this question. Even if she ended up with some money in the end, can you tell me what benefit it would have been for her to kill him at the time? So I would like some brainstorming on that. At the time when he said, I don't know, and the kid did turn out to be his, so she knew the kid was his, supposedly. And he did say he wanted custody because she was kind of messed up, but and he was throwing her out of the house. But what benefit would she get in committing this heinous crime? What not known benefit would she get? Okay, she knew. Okay, Teresa would know that he'd be there and they would be there at the lot. So that's not the question I'm asking. Oh, get the business. Wait a minute. Get the business. She wouldn't get the business. The business, she was not his wife. There was no way she was going to get the business. Revenge, yes. Vindictive, yes. Keep her home, no. Probably not. The home was not in her name. She didn't own it, and so no, she wouldn't get the home either. she would have to pay child support. Well, if he's dead, he wouldn't have to pay child support. Oh, you're saying if he got custody, she had to pay child support. Yeah, that's true. What are the chances he would get custody? It's very rare that the courts will take away a baby from a woman who is not completely messed up. He could say things bad about her, but there was no evidence that she was a drug user or was incapable of taking care of the child. They don't usually take a baby away from a mommy. Besides which, who's taking care of the baby when he's working all the time? He already has trouble. He needs his mother to take care of her. So he's probably going to say, well, my mother will take care of the baby. So it wasn't like a sure thing that he was going to get full custody. There was no proof of that at all. And she had her sister who had a place to live. She could move in with her sister. And she could get child support out of him. So that would benefit her. He would be, but it depends whether there was anything for him to really get money for. And would she really think of all of that? You got to understand that when people do this stuff, do they really, they don't know any of these things can even happen. It wasn't like he owned a lot. To go through this process, and she knew the child would be there, his daughter would be there. She would have to have somebody go in there and brutally murder 3 people so she could maybe get a little bit of money. The life insurance did not go to her. That's the problem. It didn't go to her. He suspected she was cheating on him, but it doesn't. No, it doesn't. But you're talking about a triple homicide. And a triple homicide is not an easy thing to get away with. And the police, who do you think the police are going to? Okay, not in this case. The police were idiots. Okay, this was like it's embarrassing. But generally speaking, a whole bunch of dead people that are related, that are connected to you, the police are going to be beating on your door. I don't think she was that worried about that. Yeah, I don't. That's the thing. I just don't think you would take the risk of killing 3 people, having the police arrest you and take you away, which would be very likely, to get something you don't even have any information that you're going to get anything. The only thing he basically said was, hey, I don't want you staying here anymore. So she goes and moves in the sister's house. And she fights him in court. She's the mother. And chances are the mother gets to keep the baby. So I think it's so unlikely that it wasn't like if she had been married to him and he'd had $10 million and she only had to kill him and she could get some, hire a hitman or something, I would go with that. But this seems so unlikely that for almost no proof of you're going to get anything, you kill 3 people and have the police show up on your doorstep because they're your 3 people. So we're talking about lowlifes. Okay, she's a lowlife. What big incriminating thing would he have on her? We're not talking about people who are high up in the world. We're talking about regular people who are just doing regular jobs, living regular lives. No biggie, no big thing. Nah, there's no what. I don't think. Okay, this is a better one. Was she helping her brother take revenge together with her sister? Don't say lots of laughs. That's an actual reasonable question, and a better choice than she thought she was going to get a whole bunch of crap out of this. So the brother was definitely a sketchy fellow, and it was maybe angry with Lorenzo. Maybe brother said, I'll take care of this. Here's what I'm going to do. I'll take care of this. I'll take him out. Maybe even him, and then you won't have to deal with him anymore. And yeah, I'll take care of it. All right. That sounds more likely to me. Oh, as far as a woman being involved in this. Okay. Since supposedly a woman was hurt a lot. Now, first of all, I want to let you know that I haven't heard anything about alibis in this whole freaking case. I don't even know if police look for alibis. It's appalling. You have a specific time that this happened. Where was Teresa during this entire time? Where was her brother during this entire time? Where was, we know where Lorenzo was. It was there. Where were all these people? Where were they? And we have no alibis listed at all that anybody has one. or I just don't know. It's bizarre. So maybe the brother could have run the business after. It's not his business. It doesn't belong. She was not married to him. And in the court, the judge said she tried to get the trailer. When they were trying to get the stuff for the trailer, she's like, oh, we should just say that I'm married to you. And the judge says, you can't be married sometime, part of the time. You're either married or you're not. She was not married to him. Just because she's a baby mama doesn't mean she's going to inherit all his shit. No. Let's see. Because they were treating his sisters badly in his eyes, maybe kicking his sister with a baby out. Yeah, I'll go with rage on that guy, because that guy had a rage issue. I like that one better. I don't think it has anything to do with them. The people they moved that day. They came back to the lot. But yeah, good point. I never thought of the alibis. Well, most people haven't. When they're looking at this crime, I haven't even heard of alibis being mentioned. It's crazy. The business crashed and burned. She couldn't. The mom tried to keep the business going, and she just couldn't do it. It was just a bad problem. Okay, so I want to look at two big issues. Now, let me look at the woman issue first. First of all, generally speaking, a woman who's just had a baby is not about to be moving bodies around and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't think a woman was involved in the actual crime. She could, the theoretical, I heard a woman scream, I think it was her, but let's say she went there and said, oh, brother, you're going to kill him? Yeah. Oh, and then she, oh my God. Yeah. Okay. Could it have happened? Sure, I guess. Maybe Lorenzo has a high voice. I don't know what Lorenzo sounds like. Maybe it was Lorenzo, he was screaming. It sounded like a woman, but don't know. But I personally don't think a woman was involved in the actual crime or the removing of the bodies or of the cars and all that kind of stuff. I just don't think so. So I believe this was a male. A male committed the crime, the shooting. And the question is, was there a second person involved? Now, if Lorenzo committed this whole crime and vanished off, could he have done it? As I said, could he have? He could have accomplished it. I don't know that he had anybody he could call to, hey, can you come on and help me move bodies and cars? I doubt that. So he would have to do that entirely on his own. Could he have? Again, I can't say he couldn't have accomplished it. He could have. I'm not seeing a great reason for the crime. I don't see great motive. I think that's kind of unlikely, but I understand why he's a suspect, because the bodies, here's the point, the bodies were moved. Now, I want to stop here. Why the hell did you just leave the bodies in the lot? I mean, there's a lot of things robbery gone bad, that kind of thing. Crazy person. Somebody came up and shot up the place. Unless you can absolutely link the ballistics to some gun, which is not that easy. Why not just leave the bodies there? It's a frick load easier to leave bodies in the frickin' lot. Just leave them where they fell. Don't bother moving the entire vehicle, taking them someplace, trying to get rid of the bodies, coming back, moving all the vehicles. What the heck? That's too much work. Do you actually think that Teresa's wacko brother wouldn't have just gone and just shot him up just shot him and just run away? And then say, oh my God, it must have been a robbery gone bad. Okay, good. No, Ruth, it's a great question. Thank you. Maybe it's a stupid question. Not a stupid question. But was driving the stick difficult? Maybe it was a stick. Absolutely. I am assuming, and I will say assuming just because I can't prove it because I don't know. Usually a truck like that is a manual transmission. Most trucks are manual transmissions. And that is a great question because that crossed my mind as well. First of all, very few people, especially females, know how to drive a stick. Now, I'm one of those people that knows how to drive a stick. I've driven a stick since, good Lord, I can't remember when I started driving. I don't think I drive 20, 30 years now. Yeah. And I didn't start out that way. I ended up driving a stick. I started out with a Pinto when I was young. Then I don't know what I got. I think I got my dad's car. That was a kind of an Oldsmobile type thing. So that was definitely, automatic transmission. Then I got a Subaru, and the Subaru was automatic transmission because I didn't know how to drive a stick at that time. Then the Subaru got killed in a deer crash. And so the deer killed the Subaru. Yes, and the deer died too. But my son was driving it. So thanks, son. Anyway, then my husband ran out to get an emergency car for me, and he comes back in with it. And I'm like, dude, it's manual transmission. I don't drive a stick. He goes, well, I guess you're going to learn. So I hired a driving instructor to teach me how to drive the stupid thing. And I did. And from that day, I've never driven. Well, no, I have driven automatic transmission since then. I rented cars. I drive the family car. That's my daughter's car. That's an automatic. I drive a truck that's out there. That's automatic. I drive automatic cars for sure. But in my own life, I drove stick. And then I bought my Mazda Miata, because I wanted a sports car. So I've driven a Subaru. I've driven a manual for a long time. I went down to Costa Rica with a friend, and she had rented a car, and she got up to the counter, and they said, okay, we have your car for you. And then she's like, but this is a manual transmission. They said, that's all we have. And she was like, what am I going to do? And I went, snatch. Thank God I was with her, because she couldn't drive the car. And so when you go into other countries, a lot of times they only have manuals available. So if you can't drive one of those, you're in trouble. But good point. A lot of people can't drive a stick. So who's going to be driving that vehicle all the way someplace and all the way back, at least there and back? Who's going to be doing that? Somebody who can drive a stick. Now, who can drive a stick? Now, if anybody of you remembers the Andres and Cotta case that I did, maybe I'll link it below. Andres and Cotta was a woman who was murdered in Virginia, in Arlington, Virginia, and her car was stolen. And the clutch was destroyed. And I said, whoever took that car did not know how to drive it. And they weren't going to take a joyride in it. So whoever took the car was just trying to get someplace and destroyed the clutch getting there. And so I said, I believe you're going to find that he lives, or a relative lives in that area. And that turned out to be true. Bobby Joe Leonard was the one who took the vehicle. I called up the company that he had worked for, and I said, can he drive a stick? And they said, no, he can't. And the car was near his mother's house, within a couple blocks of his mother's house. So can he drive a stick? Now, I don't know. We haven't even looked into that. Nobody has talked about the stupid. You have actually come up with a question that should be asked by the investigators. And everybody who's ever done anything on the show, but nobody has said anything. Can he drive a stick? I don't know. Just because he worked for the company doesn't mean he can drive a manual transmission. He might be the one who takes the furniture in and out and has never driven a stick shift. If that's true, it in him behind the wheel of the car. So that's one thing we would want to know to eliminate him as a suspect. See how important that question is? We want to know that. We want to know, we're sure that this is I'm pretty sure it's probably manual, but I don't know. If it's a manual transmission, can he drive a manual transmission? If the answer is no, that guy's eliminated as a suspect, 100%. Because he can't drive the distance he would have driven and brought the vehicle back and not have that clutch completely wiped out. So whoever drove this car, if it's a manual transmission, knew how to do that. Who is that? Well, females, again, generally speaking, less females know how to drive a manual transmission. Would the brother, that crazy brother, know how to drive a manual transmission? Again, this is where the investigation comes in. They have to check to see whether that guy could drive a manual transmission or not. And maybe if he can't, he might not be the guy. Because again, who is he working with? So if the crazy brother is doing this job by himself, he's got to be able to drive the vehicle. I love that. That was a great question. I'm glad you came up with that. I have been considering that. That's one of the reasons I have my theory that I have because of that. Lorenzo was, but under duress. Nah. One other theory is that the killers made him drive the vehicle. Now, let's say crazy brother came in and shot them down and said, I'm going to get rid of the bodies. You know how to drive a stick, so I want you to drive. And maybe that's why he's not dead. So at the time. So then he drives a truck out there. They just deposits the bodies. Maybe he makes him do that. And maybe he's a gentle, sweet guy, and he's just not good with a gun in his face saying no. So he helps get rid of the bodies. Then he makes him drive the truck back. And after he drives the truck back, then he puts him in his vehicle and drives back to the location that the bodies were dumped, tells him to get out of the car and shoots him and gets rid of his body, and then drives what seems to be an automatic back. Could that have happened? Yes, it could. So keep that one in mind as a possibility. Oh, that's interesting. In Germany, you have to know how to drive with a stick to get a license. Isn't that fascinating? Wow. I like that. Great job, Ruse. Yes. I'm always happy when somebody comes up with a question I want them to come up with. This is also true. Driving a huge truck is also pretty intimidating, I assume, if you're not used to it. Also, a very good question. I drive a stick. You think I can drive this freaking thing? No way. So yeah, you can drive a stick, but there is no way on God's earth I can drive this vehicle. I can drive a pickup truck. And even then, because I drive a Mazda, which is like this small and the pickup's like this, I have to I hold my breath a lot because I'm like, because I'm not used to the width of the truck. Anybody who's ever driven a big truck like this knows that you got to be able to drive a truck. So this is perfect. That was great too. So you got to be able to drive a stick and you got to be able to drive a truck. Two very important things. And whoever they're investigating, that should be the question they're asking. Did brother-in-law know how to drive a stick and not drive a truck this size? Or was he just a furniture mover? Same thing for Lorenzo. What about him? Now, could a woman do this? Of course she could. There are women who drive Mack trucks, across the country. Of course. But can Teresa do this? That's the question. So these are great questions. This is really, really great. Oh, I'm so happy to see this. U-Hauls are automatic now. Oh, interesting. But not back in all trucks are stick. Interesting. Yeah. I'm a stick person myself. my whole life till last year. Sometimes people decide eventually they're like tired of doing the stick, but I don't know. I like a sports car, so yeah, I'm kind of like that. Oh my God. Tim says, I used to have to be able to parallel park to get a license in Virginia. It took my sister forever to pass. Do you know, I was once a driving instructor, and I had to go take the driving instructor test in Maryland. And I am a great driver. I've had, cross fingers, I don't ruin this, in my entire adult life. I've never had an accident, like ever. So I have a clean driving record, and I have driven as a private investigator. I've tailed cars. I've driven as a driving instructor. I was a driving instructor, and I did delivery driving work, which requires you to drive really fast and insanely to get to jobs quickly enough to make money. And I also ran my car service, and so I drove tremendous amount. When I say car service, I was going to TV, doing my TV work, and I managed to establish a car service as opposed to the limos that they sent me, so I could get paid from the time I left my house till the time I got back, because they were paying the limo, but not the people presenting on TV, not the commentators. So I developed that company so I could drive myself in and out and make money. I also have driven in England, Jamaica, Costa Rica, Mexico, Nicaragua. I have driven all over the world. So I consider myself a really, really good driver, but I freaking couldn't park to save my life. And so I was trying to park, do the parallel parking test for my license to be a driving instructor. And the guy goes, you can't parallel park, can you? I said, absolutely not, but I can teach it like you wouldn't believe. And he let me go ahead and get certified. Oh my goodness. I'm driving an automatic now because the Subaru Wilderness stopped offering the vehicle in manual. Oh, that is unfortunate, but it's a Subaru, so everyone can't not love a Subaru. All right, so now here's the issue. Somebody's got to be able to drive the truck. I'm so glad you brought that up. Got to be able to drive a stick, probably, and be able to do a big truck. So that's important. All right, now, here's the big question. Why did the person have to get rid of all the bodies and instead of just leaving them in the freaking parking lot? Because that's a whole lot easier. Just have them get killed in the parking lot. Look like a robbery gone bad, some crazy dude, whatever. Why go to the work of all this effort of getting rid of the bodies? What's the purpose? Somebody tell me. Evidence. Okay. Yes, the evidence would be ballistics, but the ballistics can't be proven unless you can tie them to a gun. So you can just get rid of the gun, quite frankly. They knew him. How does that make a difference? I mean, I see your point in the sense I said that Teresa, like, getting them all killed, they are going to show up on the doorstep. They are. But if they go missing an event, understand this too. There is no question they were murdered from day one. All right. Just because they removed the bodies, there was so much evidence there in the lot. There were bullet holes. I think there were a couple casings. There's blood. There's part of a scalp. There really should have been no question from day one they were murdered. So they were going to show up on anybody who knew them as doorstep no matter what. So that was going to happen anyway. As a matter of fact, yeah, it's just going to happen anyway. No body, no murder. But it should have been proven as a murder right away. There's no reason. They said there was so much blood there that there was no question that they were murdered. But they were just jackasses about it. But nobody was going to know prior to that the police are going to be jackasses in this case. Inside jump. I don't know about that. Were the bullet holes from outside or inside? I have no freaking clue. No bodies, no cause of murder. It was clear they were shot because there were bullet holes and pieces of scalp flying. No, cause of death was I don't know anything about the caliber. The information is not out there. So wait. What do you say? The reverse is also true. The reverse of what? I'm not sure what the reverse of what. So there's usually, sorry, I'm having a hold on a second. Issues here. What the heck is that? Sometimes something happens here, you click on it, then it'll like block somebody out. And I don't want to do that to you, Christoph. There's something weird hanging over your comment. I don't know what it is. So there were two things. I'm going to tell you the two things now. So those people who have the patience to stay through my shows, because they're like, somebody put on one of my other shows, oh, Dr. Grande, check it out. He had this fit like 15 minutes. And I removed it, not because I thought there was anything wrong with what Dr. Grande said, but you're coming to my show, which is 2 hours. You tell people to leave and go watch something that's only 15 minutes to save time. So my shows are long because it's a thinking process, and that's an educational channel. And I'll stick with that, even though it does me terrible in the earning abilities. But anyway, two things that stuck out to me more than anything else. Three. One, she was killed. Little girl's killed. In spite of everything about Teresa and her crazy brother and stuff like that, she knew that little girl was going to be there. Would she really have been okay with that little girl being shot to death? I mean, yeah, it could eliminate her as I guess somebody who could, get his estate. But again, it's really far-fetched. She could have killed him any other day. Why would you pick it when the little girl's going to be there? It just seems a little extreme. Second, that the bodies were indeed, somebody went to a lot of work to get rid of the bodies. 3, that where his car was found was not surprising to me. Somebody just dumped his car close by, but his car was down near Denver. So, take a look at another theory. The police say they thought it was drug related, and I have no proof that he was involved in in drugs. He had some drug issues in the past. I don't know how much in the present. He looked like he was trying to live a clean life, but then again, I don't know much about him any more than I know about Lorenzo. All this stuff we're hearing from a few people. The police seem to believe that his operations might have been a front, and he could have been. It could have been that, generally speaking, he kept her away from what was going on, and maybe he was making some money on the side, that he was allowing people to deal drugs, using his location as a place where trucks could come and go with contraband. I don't know. Maybe he moved contraband. I don't know. I have absolutely no idea. But one thing occurred to me. When the bodies were completely taken out of that lot, somebody did all that. Now, I've spent time in Mexico, and I spent time in a place called Pozos. And one of the things that was interesting about Pozos, Mexico, was they had these holes in the ground that I went on a little tour with some guy out there. It's out in the middle of the desert. And the guy dropped a rock into the hole. And you couldn't hear it hit the ground. And you never heard it hit. They were that deep. And it was said that at night you could hear cars pulling up into the desert, stopping for a bit, and then pulling away. And the claim was that that's how some of the cartels in the area got rid of the bodies of the people they killed. And it is in Mexico, there is a habit, shall we say, of when the cartel kills people, they get rid of their bodies. They get rid of their bodies for a number of reasons. One is they don't want, unless they're trying to make a point. Now, if they want to make a point, they might hang the bodies off of a bridge or something. And it's like, you're in my territory, so get out. They do that. But at other times, they want to eliminate competition or get rid of a problem. But they don't want the police coming in and saying the cartels did this. So they don't want to leave the bodies there to be analyzed and the whole crime scene to be analyzed. So they do have a thing in Mexico about getting rid of bodies when the cartel takes somebody out. Now, another interesting thing. So one of the reasons all the bodies could have disappeared was because that is the way the cartel works. When they eliminate competition drug people, somebody who's causing a problem, I'm pretty sure he was probably, if that is true, if there's any cartel involved, I would say, yeah, he was definitely not a target. It was collateral damage. She was collateral damage. It would be him. It would have something that he was involved in. And by the way, if he was involved in something like that, I'm pretty sure Teresa and her sketchy brother would know that as well. The sketchy brother could have been involved in this whole thing with the cartel people, with some people doing drug stuff. He could have said, he's going to be there this evening. Or you can hit him now. He could have gone and helped. I don't know. Now, a number of possibilities here. One is that pretty much if you can drive a vehicle in Mexico, you can probably drive a stick. So that's just saying. But now you can say, okay, Pat, what else do you have for why this could be true? All right. So one of the things I wanted to make sure of was the issue of, in 1999, who was involved in drug running in Colorado. I mean, I don't live there, so that's something I wanted to know. And so I looked at it, said, yes, Mexican cartels were involved in selling marijuana in Colorado in 1999. At that time, Colorado was a market and regional transportation hub for both Mexico-produced and Canada-produced marijuana, which was distributed by various criminal organizations, including Mexican drug trafficking groups. So the key points about cartel activity. Transportation, marijuana is typically transported in the state in commercial trucks, rental and private vehicles, and by package delivery services, blah, blah, blah. And they smuggle things across the border and then into states like Colorado, and then they used local commercial vehicles to move stuff around. Now it's pretty much, that's no longer a big deal in Colorado because marijuana has been legalized. But interesting enough, they were involved in selling marijuana, and because he was mostly marijuana, what he was involved in, whatever, either little or big, I don't know, because I have no proof on any of this stuff because I'm not inside the investigation. But there was claims that he sold marijuana. Now, how much of it, I don't know, and or whether he was completely out of that or not. But the police believed that there were drugs involved in this. And indeed, the Mexican cartel was involved. Now, here's an interesting thing. So getting rid of the bodies would be a Mexican cartel-like thing. Hold on a second. I got to figure out what's going on here. Oh, that was so weird. Marijuana is bulky. Oh, okay. But it was not uncovered during the investigation. Then how could likely would the cartel have cared about a small operator? I don't know. And I'm not saying I know. I'm saying that Pablo Escobar was El Patron del Mal. That was Colombia, not Mexico. But there's a great movie. But if you want to see a great series, do watch the Colombian version, El Patron del Mal. Fantastic. And Pablo Escobar. You would think he is Pablo Escobar. It's amazing, amazing acting. It's great. One of the best series I've ever seen. As you were saying here, Anna says, which is why the sisters knew they're both dead if they knew about the drugs, if the drugs existed. And again, I'm not saying I know. You can make big money. So it depends whether he was some cog in the machine. Don't know. But here's the other interesting thing I found, which I just thought was fascinating. And as I always say this, in this situation, I am not saying who committed the crime. I'm not on the inside of the investigation. I have what you have in a public domain. So I'm not trying to prove who committed the crime, who's guilty, who's innocent. All I'm trying to do is take you through the thinking process. So, but this is what I thought was really fascinating. Why was his vehicle, taken to where it was taken? Now, when you have vehicles that are moved to a specific location, they're moved for a few reasons. Okay. One is they're near transportation so that you can dump the car and jump a train or a bus and get the hell out of town. You can't take the car. If you decide you can't take the car, but you don't want to, you just dump it someplace. Two, you dump it oftentimes in an apartment complex because there's so many people living there. They're not going to know who. Maybe the person went home. By the way, that's number three. You're going home. You take the vehicle, and you want to get near to your house because you don't want to walk that far. So you'll walk a mile maybe or two, but you don't want to walk that far. So you take the vehicle to a location near your home so that you can then walk the rest of the way. So if the vehicle is dumped in an apartment complex, probably you don't live in the apartment complex, but you might live half a mile down the way or in another apartment complex. Again, sometimes you'll take the vehicle and dump it in an apartment complex to blame the people in the apartment complex, especially if they're of a certain group. Let's say a white woman is killed, and so you dump the car in a complex with mostly Black people or Hispanic people, or vice versa. So you can you might move it around so you can try to just distract and to have the police look in the wrong direction. Oh, okay, it might be this when it's not that. So so the car was found in this location. All right. So no, that's not it. Sorry, that was Lorenzo's car's there, but the other car is found down there. Now, down there is I'm just going to try to pull this up so I can. It's Arkansas Street, and you can see it is about 23 minutes south, approximately, or whatever. And so it's down there on Arkansas Street, and it wasn't an apartment complex. All right. But as I said, it was too far away from that darn Greyhound station. But where was it? Ignore that. All right. Look at this one. Okay, so here it is. Okay. 3129 West Arkansas Street. It's an apartment complex. Now take a look at that Garfield Lake Park. Okay, see the lake park right up there in the green with a little blue lake in it? All right. Now, this area, do you see it just slightly west of that park? Now, that area is a place called, here it is on the map. It's west of Denver. And so it's right there. And the name of it is, let me see if before I tell you the funny thing about that location, is the name of the area. Oh, shoot. Hold on a second. I got to find it. All right. Is Marley. Marley. I'm like, all right. So I looked up Marley. It says here, did you know that Marley neighborhood has more Mexican ancestry people living in it than nearly any neighborhood in America? It's true. 56.4% of this neighborhood's residents have Mexican ancestry. Interesting. So the vehicle, his vehicle, is left in an area has a high amount of Mexicans. And the reason I started looking into the Mexican connection was because there's a street there called Mexico Street. And then there's all these Mexican restaurants, ton of them, like a lot of Mexican restaurants. There are a few pho places too, Vietnamese pho places. But this is much later in time. But I looked back into 1999 to see what was going on. And now, of course, it doesn't mean just because there are Mexicans in the neighborhood that the cartel is operating there. It doesn't mean that at all. So please don't mistake that. I've spent a lot of time in Mexico, and I happen to love Mexico, and I love Mexican food, and I have no problem with Mexicans. So that's not the issue. But the issue is, if you're an investigator and you see that the bodies have been removed so that they cannot be found, and that one of the cars is found in a very highly Mexican neighborhood, and you're suspecting him of being involved in marijuana drug trafficking of some sort, you just have to say, is it possible that this is a drug-related homicide, triple homicide, based on what we see? So the old, obviously, word that I hated when I heard it from the last time. There are some cases where I could say, absolutely, this is what I believe happened. All the evidence supports this. In this particular case, I can't say exactly what the evidence supports. Could he have done it? Yes. Do I think he did? I do not. But I'm on the inside investigation. Do I think Teresa and all those, she was involved in getting rid of him because she wanted him to, I don't know, not pay child support, and she was somehow thinks she's going to get some kind of deal somewhere? Could she? I guess, but she'd have to, and I would have to think the only person she could enlist would be her brother, and he's a whack job. But would he have gone to all the work to move all, killed it? This, she knew this child was there. Would she be okay with that child being killed as well? And a poor Lorenzo. I mean, just because he got the job after her useless brother got fired, did she really hate Lorenzo that much? She thought, I'm going to take him down. I'm going to kill the kid and Lorenzo too. And then, hey, somehow the crazy brother is going to go through all the work of getting rid of the bodies and all that stuff. I find it hard to believe, even though it could have happened. Could have happened. Would I be investigating her? Absolutely. Would I be investigating the Donovan brother? Absolutely. I would be investigating all of them. But could I believe that this has a somewhat of a look of a Mexican cartel involvement, drug involvement, that the bodies they worked so hard to get rid of the bodies for a reason, because that is the methodology of the Mexican cartel, and that the car was found in a Mexican-ish neighborhood? I'd be looking at that as well and thinking maybe that, all these other people are just, they may have their issues, but they wouldn't go to this length. And of course, I do still believe these people, they were collateral damage. Whether he was honing in on something they shouldn't have been honing in on, homing in. It's funny because I looked it up the other day. I tend to say honing, and it's not even true. It's actually the wrong pronunciation of homing in. But it is a popular thing in the United States, so got to stop that. Homing in, homing in makes more sense anyway. But was he involved in something? And I don't know. So I would say there are, generally speaking, only three possibilities. Lorenzo did it, and the reason that he got rid of the bodies is because if he didn't, he would be an obvious suspect, and then he just ran off and managed to disappear or kill himself. Or Teresa was involved with her brother in some crazy thing because they're both angry and pissed off, and they ended up killing all of them. And then somehow brother managed to get rid of the bodies and all that kind of stuff, and the cars and all that. Or it was a drug-related crime that was related to the Mexican cartel. Those are three possibilities. I don't know anybody's alibis. I don't know what weapons anybody had. I don't know what the interviews ever happened. I don't know whether he really was involved in drugs. I do not know. I don't know if he had some weirdo issues we don't know of. I don't know all of these things. So those are three theories you can just leave out there to ruminate on. And maybe, just maybe, if this whole new story, let me read you the whole new story coming out, because it's like crazy. What you just heard, you're not going to believe this story. So I saved it for the end just because it's so ridiculous. So this just came out in where is it? Oh, come on now. Are we going to do that? Seriously. It's so weird. Wait a minute. Okay. I'm going to have to. Somehow the thing I was looking at just vanished on me. So let me find, let me go to news and pull it up, because it's just crazy. It really is crazy. Let's see, Paul, let me get this in here. Paul Skiba. All right. New evidence. Here it is. Okay. Got to pull it back up. New evidence. Now wait till you hear this. And then I'm going to go to all your comments because I'll be done with this. New evidence in 1999 Westminster triple homicide could finally crack the case, police say. This just came out. Oh, this is February 2025. Okay, it was almost a year ago. But apparently, darn it, I thought it was more recent. So I'm going to say they didn't come up with crap, So 26 years since the triple homicide. Paul Skiba, his 9-year-old daughter Sarah, and his employee Lorenzo Chivers disappeared on February 7th, 1999, after signs of a struggle at Skiba's moving company. Where'd the signs of a struggle come up? Oh, because now they believe that a massive amount of blood and pieces of people's scalp indicate a struggle. Their bodies have never been found, and neither has a suspect. Officers were down there and discovered what looks to be a crime scene, said Detective Troy Gardiner with the Westminster Police Department. No, the officers went down there and refused to even look at the crime scene. They said, oh, no, he just kidnapped his daughter. And they refused to even go in and look at the crime scene until like 5 different people said, you got to go in there and look at it because I think it's a crime scene. Yeah. According to investigators, Skiba and Shivers had worked a couple of moving jobs in Thornton and Morrison during the day. Sarah, who had tagged along with her dad, made one final call at 6:22 p.m. shortly after the trio returned to this truck yard, located at 7100 block of North Raleigh Street around 7 p.m. Investigators believe the 3 were murdered either in the yard or at a secondary location. And a secondary location means him. It appeared as if they some sort of confrontation. The people have been shot. A confrontation? That's interesting. A confrontation usually means there was an argument. Where did they come up with that crap? The truck was found in the lot on North Raleigh Street the next day. Yeah, by everybody else, but the police ignored it. We have a witness who actually heard the truck return and hit the fence as it was being pulled back into the moving yard. That is supposedly true. 26 years later, it remains unsolved. He said, however, new evidence has emerged. What we've discovered as well is there are parts of the moving truck that were missing. So the big moving ramp that would have been with the truck actually split into 2, and that ramp was missing, as well as moving blankets and moving straps. They knew that 26 years ago. What the heck are you lying about? Westminster detectives reanalyzed the original evidence and discovered new DNA. Did they really? Which they are working to test with today's technology. And then they want to speak with more people. And they're offering $10,000 reward that's 3 people. Nonsense. Okay, let me go to your comments. Okay. Okay, let me roll back up here. Is it possible? Yeah, there was money in marijuana. I mean, there was a lot of money in marijuana. I know whether a lot of it was probably coming from Colombia through Mexico. So Colombian marijuana was there back in those days. I think. I'm not sure. I'm thinking back to the 70s, but there was originally in the 1970s, there was homegrown, and then there was Colombian, Jamaican, and Maui Wowie from Hawaii. And homegrown was the crap that people smoke sometimes and said, is this doing anything to me? I don't feel anything. And then there was the stronger stuff, which is Colombian, Jamaican, and Maui Wowie. So, but you can make money. Yeah, you can make money on it. I mean, maybe not as much as cocaine, but you can make money on it. But, the marijuana was one of the big industries at a point in time until cocaine took over. Cocaine, they realized you could produce that and you could package it much more solidly and make a whole lot more money. So yeah, eventually cocaine became it. The blog said he rented parking spots to drug dealers, was going to stop doing it. A blog said that he rented to drug dealers and was going to stop doing it. Be careful of a blog. And mind you, the police do seem to think that there was some drug issues involved here. Why would he rent to drug dealers? And what does that mean if he was renting to drug dealers? And was he not involved, but they were involved? So all of this is stuff. And you have to be you have to really be careful of stuff that's said. I had the same thing with the Anna Kepner case recently. It was just driving me nuts. People say, oh, well, they found this. And I'm like, where did you get that information from? I haven't seen it. Oh, it was some YouTube channel or some media outlet said this. Well, it doesn't make it true. It's just they said that. If it's not coming from the police, it is very difficult to determine whether it's true or not. Even sometimes the police question some of the things they say too. But Frida says, something important is that the cartel's main goal is the survival of the cartel. He was a key link to keep the cartel out of the eyes of the law selling drugs. Yeah, it's very hard to know why certain things happen when you're dealing with any kind of criminal organization. If you don't know how the inside works and what is going on and who's causing a problem, who's flying the ointment, and who is maybe homing in on somebody's territory that they shouldn't be on their territory, a new group wants to come into the territory and you're getting in their way, or it could be a low-level drug dealer who happens to be working in the business who decided to eliminate him because he was causing problems. Who knows? Very hard to say. The brutality and ruthlessness of killing two other innocent people already suggests a cartel. Well, yeah, they're less concerned about taking lives, shall we say? And people don't understand this, but I have watched cartel videos on the dark web, shall we say? And I watched a cartel video where there were 6 women who were involved in the other cartel group, and they had them on the ground. And all I can say is that it's one of those things when you watch what they did to those women, you can't unsee it. And the brutality is phenomenal. And so there are things that they just don't, people, there's a high level of psychopathy obviously involved in people who are in these kind of drug organizations. And it's destroyed a lot of Colombia and Mexico, and just and the U.S. It's a destructive. That's why I have no sympathy for. If you use drugs and you buy drugs, you're supporting the cartel. If you're supporting the cartel kills people in our country with their drugs. They kill our people in our country with just the way they run their businesses, and they kill a lot of people in their own countries. So we are, if you buy drugs in the United States, shame on you and damn you, because you are destroying Mexico and Colombia and a lot of the other countries down there, and you're destroying our country. I have zero sympathy. So I'm sorry. I'm like zero sympathy on that. It's not, people I say drugs are a victimless crime. They destroy your family, they destroy your community, and they destroy your country, and they destroy other countries. Got zero sympathy. I find it sickening. Anyway. What? Nobody said anybody was high. And then there's no evidence of anybody being on drugs at the time they were killed. Didn't the police ask the drugs for an alibi, cartel for an alibi? I don't know that they asked anybody for an alibi. I mean, where was that whack job brother of Teresa? Where was he? I mean, he's definitely a good suspect. I mean, my God, he said they were shot in the head and he had issues, and he could have done that for himself. He could have done that for his sister. He could have been working with the drug dealers. I don't even have a clue. Well, he's a damn good suspect. He's a way better suspect than Lorenzo. I'll say that from what I know. But if it was a cartel job, why no DNA from Lorenzo on the scene? Such a good question, Benny. That is such a good question. And that's one of the weirdest things about this case. You would think they're going to kill everybody immediately. I mean, there's no good reason that they shouldn't kill Lorenzo too. If they're just shooting down people. Let me look at the possibilities. Chrissy says, I think Lorenzo is the key. Okay. Let's say it wasn't Lorenzo who committed this crime. What would be your suggestions for why his DNA was not found at the scene? What would you think? Yeah, that is true. Drug dealers do know how to get rid of bodies. They are good with that. Probably no. She was shot. She was killed at the scene. So no, they weren't taking her. I don't think she was not. They weren't trying to like abduct her. Why would they do that? I mean, the only reason you abduct a child this age is to rape and murder them immediately. And so a child predator, sex predator, is not going to waste his time when there's two men there. That's just no. And for any of you who keep thinking that she would be abducted into some sex trafficking stuff, stop it. God knows I'm so sick of hearing about sex trafficking. Nobody is going to kidnap this kid into sex trafficking. They don't and kill two people to do it. They don't need to do that. They don't need to. There's any child this age is kidnapped and is found raped and murdered is a child sex predator, a serial killer. We don't have that kind of sex trafficking in this country. As much as people try to claim everybody's being sex trafficked, it's nonsense. Because it's just not worth doing. And there's so many women and young women and teen girls who are willing to be involved in prostitution. You don't need to kidnap anybody. All you need to do is pay them or get them drugs. Let's see. Hello, Kitty. Sorry, my kitty just rolled in. He was killed somewhere else. Yeah, well, that's the theory. He was killed somewhere else. So why wasn't he killed there? Used to drive the truck. And that theoretically is a good concept. You wonder why, if they were from Mexico, they usually know how to drive a stick. I mean, it's just a very popular car in Mexico. So it's kind of hard to believe they wouldn't know how to drive it. But maybe they didn't know how to drive a big truck. Did he know? This is where the questions keep coming in and drives me nuts. I want to know, can the guy drive a stick? If he can't drive a stick, he's not driving that vehicle. It's simple fact. I mean, he just can't do it, especially the size of that truck. So whoever drove it had to be able to drive a manual transmission. As long as there's not something weird about this truck, it turns out to be an automatic. And if it is, I can't find any information. All these people did all these shows, and I can't find one shred of information about the truck issue and driving a manual transmission. If they were, again, a lot of it would be to how they approached the vehicle and who was where in the vehicle. Now, or were they all in the vehicle? That is another question that we don't know. And because they did such a dreadful crime scene analysis. Well, actually, they didn't do one. That was the problem. In other words, were they in the vehicle when they were shot? In other words, he would probably be behind the wheel. She would be in the middle. He might be on the right side. That's what I would think the normal way it would be as they were returning. They would be sitting there in the cab, and I would put the kid in the middle, right? So if they went to shoot him from outside the vehicle, now mind you, the windows weren't shot out. That's another interesting thing. So were they even in the vehicle when they got shot, or did they all get out of the vehicle and then they started shooting at them outside of the vehicle, and he got killed? And I don't know how she got killed, and then was he in a different location, and did they grab him and whatever? I mean, it's possible. I just don't know. And that is very, very possible. His DNA was missed because the police did such a rubbish job. Entirely possible. I don't know. So I don't think he was ever the target. I don't believe that. Maybe Lorenzo was in on it with someone else and the partner killed him later. Okay. perfectly reasonable to suggest. He could have said to somebody, we're on our way back. He could, and said, we're going to be there in a few minutes. And then he gets out of the vehicle, somebody kills them. But he'd have to be involved. I would say he'd have to be involved with the drug traffickers because, again, and that puts him in a really crappy position. See, this is the problem with that. I mean, no, I can't go with that. Not because it's not a good suggestion. And I think I want you to understand and learn. Brainstorming doesn't mean that every conclusion, that would be true. You might go through and go, oh, no, that couldn't have happened. I don't think that could have happened because you have to be an idiot, in a sense, to be involved in killing people you work with when you're the last person to be seen with them. So that would just put him in trouble. So to me, that makes no sense. But it's a perfectly good brainstorming thing. Oh, okay. When did this happen? Sorry, God. Let me find out when it happened again. February 7th, 1999. That's a good question, though. I thought that for a minute there. Maybe maybe it was hotter than hell. It's February 7th it's in Colorado. It's not, Colorado may not be as cold as some places on certain parts of the year, but I can't believe on February 7th it was hotter than heck. Okay, well, let me find out. Let me go to Grok. I'll say Grok can pull this up. Okay, so I'm going to go to Grok and put up February 7th. I'm just going to put Denver in because that's, Grok, where are we? Okay. What was the temperature? What was the temperature? I can't spell. Temperature in Denver, Colorado on, oh shoot, I forgot what, wow, shoot, what day was it? Crap. Hold on February 7th, 1999. Okay. Hopefully it's still there. Okay. On February 7th, I can't type all of a sudden. February. I already forgot. Okay. Hold on a second. 7th. I have like a really short memory. February 7th, 1999. 7th, 1999. All right. So let's see. So we can get an idea. All right. Holy crap, it was cold. Okay, so that answers our question right there. Yeah, it was 6 p.m. was 35 degrees. It was down to 21 degrees that day. 21 degrees Fahrenheit in case you're from the centigrade people, and I can't do the centigrade. So it was average temperature is 32 degrees, which is freezing. So good question though. I thought of that myself, and I'm like, why weren't the windows shut up? So the trajectory of the bullets would be interesting, now, wouldn't it? But one would think if they were inside and the windows were up, you would think they would be shot right through the windows. And one of the questions that was always considered was Jerry really the target? He was supposed to be driving that day. So if he pulled in at night, it was dark, and it was February, so it would be dark by then. They pulled into the lot at night. You might shoot the guy behind the wheel because you think it's Jerry, not Paul. But if that's not true, because it's too freaking cold, so the windows are up, you would shoot through the windows to break the windows. The windows would be shot out. So he must have gotten out of the vehicle before he got shot. So none of the vehicles on the window was shot. So that's interesting. Very good. Could he have run and his blood is a few hundred miles away? Well, yeah, and no one looked past the main lot. Absolutely. So unfortunately, the investigation, which was pretty much non-existent for like a week, was appallingly bad. And they did spend some time cleaning up. The blood, one of the areas where the blood was, they poured oil. I think they poured oil on it and covered it up to try to cover up the blood. So they really did work overtime and trying to cover up which is weird because, as somebody said, it was both overdone cleaning and underdone cleaning. It's like, why was there still blood on the vehicles? Well, first of all, it was night. It was night, and so when they shot them and then came back, it was dark. So who knows maybe they just did what they thought they could see and do, and no more than that. maybe the target was dad only. I think it was dad only. I do think it was dad only, regardless of whether it's a cartel or not. And it wasn't a cartel. So if it was a brother, he spared Lorenzo, and Lorenzo laid low. No, Lorenzo's never appeared again. So no. I did have a clue. I didn't think he looked. I didn't think the guy looked anything like him at all. So yeah, if you had a chance to see the faces, I would think you would not be confused. Maybe everything's different. Lorenzo was a target. I don't think so. I see no evidence of that whatsoever. I mean, could it be true that Lorenzo was a target? I mean, well, if Lorenzo was a target, I would just kind of say that they look different. No, I don't think you can mistake him for him. So Lorenzo is a target. Why are these two people getting killed? Lorenzo? I don't know. But can I discount it entirely? No, I can't, because again, okay, this is good point Anna makes. I imagine that dad and child will be together. That's true. So the DNA will be more likely found together. Also very true. Very good point. But maybe Lorenzo tried to run and his DNA just wasn't near this. It's very possible. Yeah, it's very possible. So he may have been killed on the lot as well, and then just chucked into the vehicle and taken off. And then, yeah, they just may never have found his DNA. I tend to think, if I had, it is a brain scratcher. But it's one of these things. I always wonder, if I were on the inside of the case, whether it would be a brain scratcher. I have seen cases from the outside where I go, there's no way I know what the heck happened. I have some theories, I have some concerns, I have some issues, I have some questions, I have some conclusions, but I don't know where I'm at. And then I go into the police department, and oftentimes this has happened to me. Whereas I arrive at the police department, I feel like a kind of a fool. So I might be flying into location, and then I'm walking in, everybody's welcoming me, sheriff's department, police department, whatever. And I'm like, okay. So then they put me in the room with all the stuff I want to look at, and I feel a fool. And I feel a fool because I'm thinking, I'm talking to these detectives. They seem very smart and very nice. And I'm thinking, I have just come all this way. What if I just sit here and I go, oh no, I'm going to feel an idiot. And I have been surprised. Can't tell you how many times I've been surprised that the reason the case is cold is because the analysis wasn't done properly. And once I saw the information, I'm like, holy crap, how the heck did this go unsolved? I mean, I've been shocked. And that's why I wrote my book, The Profiler, because I worked on these cases and I was so stunned at some of the things I saw. And that's why I strongly believe that detectives need better training. And most detectives never go to detective school. There's no such thing. You're a patrol officer, and then one day you become a detective. You kind of on the job learning. And you should be going to at least a 3-month, in my opinion, a detective school. And learning profiling and evidence analysis and all of that stuff. And this is why I hope to eventually, if I do my third channel, which, is a lot of work and probably no money, but I want to have a specific channel for detectives on very, very specific issues, so that they can just sit in their cruisers and just learn stuff for free. And maybe that'll help, because there's no training programs for them, but they're often very well-meaning people. And some of them are very good analyzers. Some are great profilers, but there's other ones who they just don't profile very well. The whole group just missed stuff. It's amazing. So I don't know. This case, I could walk into this case and go, oh my God, of course. If I'd only seen this information, I would be able to say, I think I know what happened. Now, it's possible, I will say this, in spite of the absolute garbage investigation that was done originally, which was embarrassingly bad. And I rarely say anything negative against police departments, but there are a few times when I have to speak up. This was terrible. This crime scene should have been investigated immediately and shut down. And this was, and I just don't know how they kept saying, oh, he just ran off with a kid. Lorenzo's missing too. So, I mean, what the heck? And everybody's saying they're all missing, and they're getting phone calls from everybody in the family, and the police are just ignoring it. I don't understand how that happened. So I kind of feel like they botched this case. But if I went in and looked at, did they finally do interviews that were useful? Did they finally I just don't know what they have. And I want to know all the issues about the truck, about the issues about the manual or not. I'm assuming it is a manual, but don't know. Did he drive? I want to know who can drive a stick. I want to know what their alibis were. There's a myriad of things I want to know for me to be able to absolutely determine whether this guy somehow got in an argument, killed him, and then did all this stuff on his own and vanished, or was Teresa and her crazy brother involved in just an rage thing, just getting rid of him, or was this actually a drug involved crime? And we won't necessarily know. Oh yeah. Oh yes, that's true too. The truck was returned with blood and scalp on it. Yeah, like, don't you preserve evidence? What the hell? Yeah, absolutely. Seems like they didn't put much effort in for these three people, including a child. I don't know this is a high crime area, but my God, a child is missing. And they're just saying, oh yeah, he just ran off with him. I mean, even if he did run off with her, we've seen fathers run off with the little girls before and their daughters and sons and kill them on the way. So it was appallingly bad, just appalling. Maybe because they had a shady past, it just didn't bother much. Okay, that is, I don't know at that point in time whether they knew he had to kind of, he did have an iffy past. He did some things, which weren't exactly illegal. And does that give him a bad attitude? It can. That is just a reality. I mean, it's like, I remember asking my daughter, who, a detective, who when she went into homicide, I said, how are you feeling about doing homicide compared to what she did before, which she was in child abuse, sex crimes, and late now she's a domestic, but she was doing, she got into homicide, and she found it very interesting. She loved working in homicide. She found it very fascinating and all that. I said, how do you feel about it? Because now you're in homicide. She goes, well, most of them we don't care about. It's like, and she didn't mean that we don't care about solving it, but she's saying a lot of people that got killed were like drug dealers, gangbangers, really scumbags, So it was easier to work that than it was to work child abuse, which the victims were innocent. All of them are innocent. And in sex crimes, a lot of them are very innocent people as well. But some of the people that got killed were killed because they were killable, shall we say. Not that they wouldn't do everything to, they, as people always say, they didn't deserve to be killed, even if they were drug dealers or rapists. They didn't deserve to be killed. Well, some of them actually do, but but you still can't allow it. It's a legal thing. You're not supposed to kill people. So so she took her job seriously and did everything she could to bring justice and to a conclusion to a case, to find a killer, because a killer's still out there. Even if a killer kills a bad guy, he's still a killer. He's a bad guy too. So you don't want to leave the guy out there. So, but there is that issue, and that you bring it up is not completely wrong. It's like, sometimes if they had trouble with that person before, they think they're sketchy, they just kind of go a little bit less energetic, shall we say. But I don't know that they knew. This scene was so freaking obvious. I mean, we're not talking one guy just disappears and, his car's missing and somebody says, oh yeah, I think you could have been just off on a bender. But all three of them, especially Lorenzo, if he just was missing with the child, you'd go, okay, maybe it is just a parental abduction. But what does this guy have to do with a parental abduction? He's missing too, and his car is gone. And there's blood in the freaking truck and bullet holes. And they came in and said, oh, those bullet holes could have been there earlier. Then the guy who worked on that truck is going, the bullet holes weren't here before. They just ignored everything they said. So I don't know what happened. That police department was just dreadful. That's all there is. Just freaking dreadful. And maybe they're better now. But that article was awful. And I don't know if that's the media or the police department, but pretty bad. By the time Chris Watts happened, the cops' technique went from worst to best. Well, different situation, and sometimes it's just whoever's there. Like with Stephen Avery. Well, Stephen Avery was wrongly convicted the first time around, and it was because he was a doppelganger for the guy who actually did it, and the local police knew he was a psychopath. So, I mean, it was one of those freak things. And yeah, but second time around, yeah, he was guilty as heck, and the police did a fine job and put him away, which they should. Sarah had no criminal past, not that we know of. I heard that she might have stolen a penny. Seems like the CBI had more. Yes, CBI did come in and they did a better job. They did in this particular case. So thank God for that. But still, crime is unsolved. And why is it unsolved? Well, obviously the bodies haven't been found, and that's always a big problem. But the only thing they would have would be ballistics at the scene, which there should be some of. The alibis are very important. They supposedly Teresa failed a polygraph too, so, which she admits. But that, you can have a lot of circumstantial evidence, you can't prove it. As I said, I find Teresa and her brother and her sister pretty scummy people. I mean, that's the way they come across anyway. And they said a lot of strange stuff, but sometimes also the problem is when you get people of a certain, I don't know, type, they say a lot of crap. It doesn't mean it's true. It doesn't even mean that they're confessing. It just means that they like to say crap. So it's hard to tell. And maybe they're just bad behaving people to begin with. So like maybe if Bobby Joe is already pissed off at him and then he goes missing, she's like, oh, okay, I'm done with him. Pack up his bag. You can get out. You can take the kid. Well, yeah, we don't even know what happened to him. Yeah, something bad happened to him. Take everything. Does that mean she knew anything? Not necessarily. So the problem we have is that we can't jump to conclusions and think something's obvious. We don't know that it is. But so I don't know. They may have had their suspicions. They may have even had a very strong viewpoint that this is who committed the crime. Now, Detective Long thinks it's a drug-involved crime. That's his belief. I see some reasoning for that from outside the investigation. But if I were inside the investigation, would I go, oh, absolutely, I agree with you? Or would I say, boy, now that I'm inside, you're just barking up the wrong tree. It's just not a drug-involved investigation. Did you look at these? Is a common law wife and all her siblings? I mean, I might have said that. But I don't know because I'm not inside the investigation. Yeah, that clearly Sarah is innocent of anything. That's for sure. It said here they could be declared dead. Yeah, after 5 years. I think a lot of places 7 years. When I saw 5 years, I thought it's Colorado different. But that's what it took the mother of Paul 5 years to have him declared dead, in spite of the fact there was evidence he was murdered. And so that's why everything went to hell for her. She did everything. She was trying to keep everything going, and she got screwed. I mean, that woman really got screwed. She lost her son, her granddaughter, and she went broke. And then she's had a rough time. Terrible. I think she passed away too. I'm not sure. That is true. They like to talk shite just to be talking. That is sometimes true. Oh, interesting. That's a good point. Thank you, Christoph. Perhaps Lorenzo was killed without bloodshed. Hey, I didn't even hit my mind. See, that's why brainstorming is good. Absolutely. It's possible that some people were shot and somebody could have come up behind him and did a chokehold on him. And he died of a chokehold. And they just shoved his body in. Absolutely. They could have thrown a rope around his neck. They could have done that. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you for coming up with that. That's great. I just love it, yeah, why couldn't he have been killed some other way? That's the theory is, when you have somebody shooting, you just assume they're going to shoot the third guy too. But yes, it could have been just that somebody killed him in a different way. And therefore there would be no DNA. Thank you very much. I'm always excited when somebody comes up with something really good. Ran out of bullets. Oh my goodness. But that's great. That is actually very, very good. I assumed that he was killed in a less messy way, or he was forced to drive the vehicle, or this or that, or this or that, and that's the problem. We just don't have enough information. and nobody processed the crime scene properly. Should have been it should have immediately been cordoned off. They should have been in there taking photos, videos, getting all the evidence from every shred of that crime scene. But they didn't do jack. And they even left the gates open so people could come and go, and it was nonsensical. So there could have been, let's say you're right about Christoph. Let's say that some guy used a piece of rope he had, and then he just strangled the guy and dropped the rope on the ground. Wouldn't that have been nice to pick up and, see if there was any evidence there? Could there have been more than one attacker? Absolutely. Could have easily been more than one attacker, especially if you're talking about, well, if it was him, it would have been him alone. Because it would be some weird thing like, who went berserko. If it was Teresa and her brother, did he know some other scumbags he could work with? Possibly. And if it was a cartel, yeah. Could it be 2 or 3 people? Sure, absolutely. Yeah. Because there was a lot of work done, actually, that they took the truck to some location. And they think the guess is that they used that ramp thing to sink the bodies because it's heavy. And if they did all that work, that's a lot of work. And then supposedly the inside of the van was cleaned. Certain things were cleaned, and a lot of stuff was going on. And then and vehicles being moved and all that stuff. But of course, as I said, his vehicle was so short distance. All you had to do is, you could have driven there and just walk back in 20 or 30 minutes. And then you could grab the other vehicle and take it down to that location west of Denver. And that would only require one person. In theory, one person could commit this crime. They could take care of everybody, drive the vehicle to the wherever they dumped the bodies, bring the vehicle back, get in his car and say, get rid of his car. And when they get in his car, they go, I just want to stop by the site to see if I did everything right. And that's why you have evidence of the car being at the same site as the truck, and then drop the truck off and go home. Can that be done? Sure. And if you got enough hours, you can move a bunch of bodies being one person. People have done it before. So could it be one person? Yes. Could it be 2 or 3? Absolutely. Well, he did. His car was in the lot. As far as I know, the car was in the lot, and then the car was moved. Yeah. If Lorenzo was strangled, it was because he was not the target, but he was there. Yeah. And the cartel didn't want Paul to be scared of the gunshots and run off. I would think they shot him first. I don't think they were wasting their time trying to keep him quiet he wouldn't realize that he's going to shoot him. And I doubt that. But nobody did hear gunshots, which is interesting. That's kind of funny. They heard a woman scream, supposedly, but no gunshots. No, I would assume that they would go for the target first. Although sometimes, oh, I'm going to wait a minute. Let me think. Sometimes they do want to take out, if there's an extra person that didn't expect to be there, they could want to, theoretically, you see that more in detective show type things where they throw a rope around his neck to keep him quiet while then they went after them. But it's the old thing. Strange things happen at crime scenes and you just have no freaking clue. And a lot of time, unless somebody actually tells you exactly what happened at the crime scene and they're a lot liars, you might go, wow, I would never have thought that happened that way. Why did the car needs to be? Okay, it's a good question, Lorraine. Why do the cars need to be moved? All right. In theory, okay, this is that's a great question. Okay, let me stop here and think. Okay, why couldn't they just freaking move the bodies and just say hell with the damn cars? And as a matter of fact, why did they even have to bring the damn truck back? Right? Why waste all that effort? Why not just jump the truck someplace and move on? Somehow the people who killed them had to come there. Well, they probably came there by vehicle. So they probably wanted to get back to their vehicle. So that may be why they brought the truck back, because they want to get back to their vehicle. Why did they have to move the cars? Okay. I would come up with 2 possibilities here. One is because they wanted people to believe that they left of their own accord, that they brought the vehicle back and then the 2 of them went home. Perhaps they were unaware that they left enough evidence at the lot. Maybe they didn't know about the bullet holes. because it was dark. Remember, they're coming back at midnight and they're trying to clean up. They're trying to get back and do whatever they got to get done. They may have thought nobody would notice that there was actual homicide on the property. Maybe they didn't actually see that there was blood on the vehicle, or the part of the scalp of the bullet holes. Maybe they just didn't see it because now they're in a rush and they're trying to get things done. So they just bring the truck back, they take the cars, and okay, people are going to say, okay, they must have gone home, and then where the hell happened to them? And they wouldn't think anything happened at the lot. Maybe that would give them enough time for the police investigation to screw up, which it did anyway. People coming and going in the lot and all that kind of stuff. And then when they didn't show up the next day, they tried to figure out where they went to, but they wouldn't suspect necessarily. I don't know what went through their heads. That could be one possibility. As I pointed out, the Lorenzo possibility would make total sense. If he did something to them and took the truck away, he cannot be a suspect. And so taking both cars away would eliminate him from being a suspect. So there's that possibility. If the family did it, if Teresa and Crazy Brother did it, I don't even know why they bother to take the bodies anyplace, personally. It's just a lot of work. But it's a toughie. I mean, that's the problem is it is very difficult to decide why they even bother with the damn cars. For that matter, you could say if you left Lorenzo's car in the parking lot and took just Paul's car, well, you've left both of them in the parking lot and just took the van away. You could go through a million versions of this stuff. Why change the lock then? I don't know who changed the lock, Benny. I wish I knew that whole. I don't even know what kind of lock it is. That's a question I really do have, because who knew that the lock? How did they get? If they came into the lot, if they just drove into the lot and hadn't closed the gate yet, I don't know how the gate closed. See, I don't know how that worked. Is that a manual gate where you have to pull the gate shut? Or does it automatically close? It doesn't look very fancy. Was it a lock like this, or was it one of those locks you punch in? I don't know what it is. Nobody will talk about it. I would assume that they got attacked when they came back and pulled into the lot. That is when I think they had to have been attacked. Therefore, somebody could follow them directly in or be waiting in the lot, and they wouldn't have time to do anything with the lock on the gate. But after they came out of the lot, then they could just shut the gate. Well, see, if they shut the gate, how did they get the hell back in? Or if they didn't know the combination. That's interesting, isn't it? Who would know the combination? How does it work? I don't even understand how the lock works. So if the gate was left open and nobody came and went, they could leave the gate open all night long and they could just come back in. Maybe they just got lucky. And then they left and closed the gate, because the gate was locked after they left. But the whole thing about the combination, the change of the lock, I just don't know how much that doesn't make any sense. I can't even understand it. You would think it's a keypad. I don't know. Well, you would think the lock would be changed before they were killed. Yes, that Paul had changed the lock because it was somebody he didn't want back in there. But if he changes the lock, he has to let everybody who works there know, right? Because if he doesn't let them know, how are they going to come and go unless he completely eliminated everybody parking there and he was the only one parking there? See all these confusing questions? It's like, don't know. So he supposedly changed the lock, and even Jerry couldn't get in. And Jerry was the one that's supposed to be on that trip, that thing that day. Now, the other thing we have to look at, just to be fair, I don't know if Jerry's telling the truth either. I mean, he could be making up stuff. Maybe Jerry killed them all. I'm just pointing out, maybe he's the one who did know the code. And maybe he was able to come in and go. And then later on, he changed the code and said, I couldn't get in. See, you got to be really careful when you're looking at any of these things from outside the investigation, because you just don't know. You don't know. Okay. Tim says, it just hit me. The keypad would tell against it being the cartel unless they coerced the combo from Paul before killing him. But who would think of that? Well, Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I think that's reasonable. That's a reasonable. Let me think about that again. Okay, keypad. If it's a keypad, would tell against it being the cartel unless they coerced the combo from Paul. Okay, or unless he knew the combo, possibly. Well, who would think of that? That's a good question. Let's say he changed the combo. Why would Teresa's brother know it? See, I don't understand the whole keypad thing. The whole lock thing is very confusing to me. I just don't get it. I don't understand it at all because we don't have any information on what kind of lock it was, how it worked, all that kind of stuff. It's, believe me, as a profile, it's super frustrating. And one of the things that I always try to bring forth in this channel is that a lot of channels will tell you stuff as if it just is so obvious. Again, the word obvious. I swear I'm going to do that video on obvious. It's so obvious that there was this thing, and then they don't actually look further into all these questions that you're asking, and that I would ask as a profile, or an investigator should ask. Things sometimes that if we don't brainstorm, we don't even come up with. And if we don't know the answers, then that's one of the reasons we can't solve a crime. Here we can't solve the crime because none of us freaking know about that stupid keypad or the lock. We don't even know if it's a keypad. I don't know what they had. I don't know how he changed things. I don't know if he did change it. I say Jerry could be lying that it was changed. Maybe nobody doesn't know. Jerry didn't want to work that day. He said he had something to do because somebody was dying in the family. He was quite involved in all of this. Maybe Jerry's one who did it. How do we know? He knew the code. He was able to drive the vehicle, probably. Could bring. Yeah, maybe it's Jerry. Sorry, Jerry, but I don't know that I don't know that you've been excluded as a suspect. I don't know that you can't be a suspect. I don't know what Jerry was involved. Maybe Jerry was a drug dealer. Maybe, who knows? Maybe Jerry wanted to make sure he was going to come that day and had no idea that the kid was going to come with him. He just said, "Okay, I can do it." And he's like, got him. Maybe maybe Jerry's behind the whole thing. See how that works? Don't know. The podcast said that apparently it changed every time he fired an employee. Yeah, he fired a lot of employees. So, how often does he do that? But what Jerry said was he just changed the keypad. Why? Jerry said that. Again, not the keypad, the lock. He changed it. Why? And can we believe Jerry? I say he could be the one that knows exactly how to get in and out. And he could just say he changed it, and that's why he couldn't get in. And if he changed it, if Jerry knew what the code was, right? And then the next day he closes the door, and he goes, "Oh, I tried to go in and I couldn't get in because he changed the lock." See? Can you believe that? Oh my God, he couldn't get in. So therefore he's an innocent guy, right? What's Jerry's alibi? I didn't know. I didn't even think of that till now. It could be Jerry. See? But I don't know what Jerry's involved with. Maybe he's the nicest guy in the world. Like he's all over this thing saying he's helping here and he's trying to find this out and he's trying to solve the crime and all this stuff. We have no idea if Jerry's innocent or not. So just fascinating stuff. But say we could oh, that's very nice. I'm glad you love the community and the channel. That makes me happy. They could have if they didn't shoot him outright. I kind of like wonder, yeah, would they waste it? Would they even think of that? Is it even worth thinking about? Do you need to close the gate? If you're killing somebody, the whole thing is very unusual that they would even bother to even move the bodies out of there, just kill them and walk out. But if they did leave, did they just leave with not really worrying, not even thinking about the lock? Maybe they say they just didn't close the door and it was late and nobody was coming and going. They just drove back in again. Don't know. He could have done that. Yeah. I would think the police could figure out if Jerry is lying. Well, it's been 20 some years. The police haven't said who did it. I don't know. I don't know what the police are looking at. They obviously did. The original police department was dreadful. There's no question. They absolutely were appalling. I can't give him any excuses. The fact they didn't see this as a crime, a homicide scene immediately is insane. They just dicked around for days until people started harassing him, saying, look, there's bullet holes, there's this, there's that. Come on, you got to get in here. And then the CBI came in, and it was appalling. They all that time lost. That's a mess. That's an absolute mess. So I don't know whether they did any of their job correctly, or whether at some point in time they started to do it correctly, and some other detectives took over and did a good job, but they just don't have the evidence to arrest. Just don't know. It says that's here. Jerry could be ingratiating himself into the crime on purpose. That could be true. It's odd that the bodies were moved, cars moved, locks changed, lots of tidying up. It's a really weird crime. Yeah. So yeah. So I don't know. So we can add Jerry to the mix. There's a pile of suspects on this case. It just, other than I don't know anything about his family. All I know is that he was married to Misha. They had 2 kids. They were separated or divorced, and they were thinking about getting back together. That's all I know. Know nothing about his family. I don't know nothing about his past, his history. Just because, again, somebody says he's a nice guy and he's got a pretty smile, doesn't mean he doesn't have a past. It doesn't mean he doesn't have something he was involved in right away. I mean, he was just hired because he's hooked up. He's living with Teresa's sister, Bobby Joe, and he didn't have a job apparently, and he got hired to move furniture. I'm going to say it's not a good paying job, and he's middle-aged. So what's he been doing? And it could be a perfectly nice guy who just doesn't have a high education or great work, just doesn't have great skills. I mean, there's a lot of nice people in the world who do simple jobs. He could just be a simple kind of guy, a nice, simple, sweet guy. I don't have any clue. Jerry could be a great guy. Paul could be a great guy. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have enough information about any of them to be able to determine who one should be absolutely looking at. All I can say is these are the interesting things about the case. Frida says, to think if stuff changed after the crime, which police would have noticed. Well, the police didn't do, I keep saying over and over again, Frida, that police were dreadful. They didn't even come into this crime for 5 days. They refused to even participate. The one cop did come in, and he just looked around and said, yeah, well, those the guy showed me. It's like, these holes in my car from a gun. It's like, oh, no, don't worry about it. They probably were there before. I mean, it was horrible. I don't know what was going on with that police department. Dreadful. Paul and Jerry could have argued on the job and things spiraled out. It could be. Just we don't have any clue. I say all you can do when you're reading media reports and what this person said this and this person said that, it's a little limited. I do know certain cases I can do better on because I have actual access to either I've worked the crime, I've had access to police information, or it's gone to court, and then I can see all the police, all the evidence issues, and I can say, is this guy likely guilty or not guilty? But in this case, it's wide open because there's so much information. I think we got 1/10 of the information, 90% I haven't got a clue about. Yeah, there you go. It is really bad, but a fascinating case, absolutely fascinating. But the 2 main things to me are, why would anybody move the bodies? Because that's a lot of work when you can just leave them there. And 2, why is the vehicle where it is? Why was his vehicle left where it was? And those are 2 very big items. If I were looking at a crime, I'd be looking at. I would also obviously want all the alibis. I want to know what everybody's background was. I want to know what's really going on. I want to know really want to know about that stupid lock. And the issue about the standard transmission and who can drive it. That's such a big issue. I say you can eliminate one guy just like that, because if he can't drive it, he can't drive it. And then you can say this guy's innocent. He can't even drive that truck. Yeah. So and then when you start putting puzzles together, you got information like, what's the point of taking him if he can't drive the truck? Let's say somebody wanted him to drive the truck for them because they couldn't drive the truck. If he can't drive the truck either, you might as well just strangle him right away. What's the point? Then you got nobody to drive the truck. If nobody can drive the truck, why are you taking the truck out of the lot? So all these things, you got to try to put together and figure out. It is a very interesting case to brainstorm, and I don't have a great answer for it. So, but I did think I'm on the fence on who could have committed the crime, because I see a bunch of different pieces of information that could go this way or it could go that way. So I can't take away the Mexican cartel because of the effort to get rid of the bodies and the location of the vehicle. I can't take away Teresa and her crazy brother because they're real questionable people. I can't take away Lorenzo unless I can absolutely sure he can't drive that vehicle, and I don't know anything about his background. And 4, now that we've added, who do we add now? We added Jerry. We added Jerry because of that, because of the lock issue. Jerry's becomes interesting. But did Jerry he was supposedly attending some kind of relative's funeral or something, or doing something. He should have an alibi up the kazoo. You know what I mean? He should have a solid alibi. And the thing is, they know exactly when this went down, and it went down over a 5-hour, at least 5-hour period of time. Who the hell was missing for 5 hours straight? I want to know. So, could it be related to something they had moved that somebody wanted? Nah, they're not going to do that. I doubt that. Yeah, it is. I'll go with Anna. It was Mrs. Peacock in the library with the rope. And on that note, I'm going to stop the show because I'm hungry and I want to go eat. And I ran way over, like 2.5 hours here. So, but thank you for coming to the show. It's like, that's why I say I spent a lot of time losing my mind over trying to find out what it was that bugged me about this case and what it was I really wanted to know more about, and all the different angles on it. Just crazy. So yeah, it's crazy. So anyway, thank you guys for being here. I'm glad you liked it, Clarissa. Glad you were here, Christoph. I know it was late for you. Night, everybody. And again, if you're new to the show, please hit the subscription subscription button and hit the bell for notifications. Check the playlist. And if you want to be a part of the wonderful group here, click. I can't even speak anymore. It's been 2.5 hours. Click the link below and join Patreon and keep this channel going. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody. You're all so great. I love having you guys here. And that's why I make it. That's why I do lives with patrons. It's wonderful. So thank you so much, guys. And I will see you guys probably on Thursday for the hangout. See you then.